for David Martinez. Cuts it back. Touchdown number 3.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Wigman again to the air. One-handed grab, Evan Stewart. Freshman to freshman and a 15-yard strike.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
On return by Caleb Downs, and he finds a seam. He makes the punter look silly. Caleb Downs, show him what you got.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Judkins up the middle, no one home for Auburn. House call, touchdown.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This time it's going to be Leonard on the ground. Leonard showing some moves and some speed. A foot race to the 10, to the touchdown. 56 yards. Beautiful run by Riley Leonard.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Gabriel. Launches touchdown, Nick Anderson.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We're on. 360, I don't hear anything. Sorry about that. I have absolutely no audio. 365 Sports here in studio today. What?
I literally spent
I'm telling you right
10
now,
minutes on the ground before the show plugging your crap in again.
Well, you could have just not even said that.
I know.
Could have fixed it.
I did fix it.
I'm telling you, why would I not start talking? All right, here we are. What a great way to start a Friday. I had absolutely no audio, but that's fine. We can do that anyway. Jeramiah Dickey, the Boise State Director of Athletics, will join us today in about 10 minutes. Also, Tim Brando today at 5. And Grayson Grundhoefer, 365 Sports football analyst, recruiting, will join us at 3:45. All right, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Garrett Ross. Here is what Matt Brown and many others who cover college football put out today. The EA Sports Deluxe Edition, College Football 2025, Quinn Ewers, Edwards, and also there's Travis Hunter, Carson Beck. Guys, talk amongst yourselves. That's kind of a tease, and eventually they'll have the rest of them individually put out in the next few days.
Yeah, one of the rumored leaks is that Travis Hunter has his own cover. I think you might be looking at the main 3 right there in the front, if I had to guess, because that would track with what Matt told us before, that there will be multiple cover athletes at different positions from different conferences. Well, you have a quarterback from the SEC, a running back from the Big Ten, and a cornerback wide receiver from the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, that's if that's who it ends up being, that would make sense. Donovan Edwards, Travis Hunter, Quinn Ewers are all great candidates. There's a lot of other names that are on there. There's Milroe, there's Quinshawn Judkins, and then you see various shades of Carson Beck's there as well, next to the left of Judkins and Hunter. Those are the ones that you can spot name-wise. And then, there's Notre Dame, there's USC, there's BYU. There's a lot of other teams that are shown there. So if that's the 3 choices, then I think that would make a lot of sense. You cover different conferences, as you said, like the qualifications that Matt Brown had laid out that they would have: quarterback, running back, dual threat type player in Travis Hunter. That would go along with what kind of was rumored to be happening with the cover. So that's cool to see it just take another step forward, and to be at a place where we're now getting teases like this is exciting for a lot of people. So, it's going to be great when we see what the actual full-blown covers are. But if it's those 3, then, that jives.
You could kind of see some of the uniform colors. There's like Jalen Milroe in the middle of all that, among others. Also, Matt Brown earlier today In this case, timeline, thing of the timeline cares about, the streets are telling me that the final opt-in athlete numbers for EA College Football 25 over 12,800. 12,800, well above the total number of roster slots.
Yeah, so then you don't have to worry about your guy being in the game. Now you have to worry, you might have to worry about some guys not being in the game. If I'm low down the roster on, Sam Houston State, I might get cut. I might miss my spot. I might have to create myself.
What do you mean?
Well, there's 12,800 people that have opted in. There's well above the many roster spots that they have saved in the build.
Gotcha.
So there's not as many. So there will people not in the game, but they won't be in the game because they're
that sucks.
A walk-on punter at Sam Houston State.
Well, I mean, if you're a walk-on punter, then you're probably not really, you didn't have great chances to begin with. So yeah, I mean that sucks for them. But yeah, you can easily create your character. So I don't see that as being that big of a deal. I still find the Arch Manning opt-out to be the weirdest thing. I feel like that brought more attention for no reason than him just being in the game. And I understand the whole I want to earn it or whatever, but it's like, dude, you're just a backup quarterback on a video game. It's really not that serious. And I don't think the NIL money is so crazy that you are, taking money that you didn't earn or anything like that. So, he's the only major name that I've seen. Are there others that you guys have seen as far as major names that have opted out? I haven't seen anybody else. So it's almost like you made it a bigger deal than by not being in it than by being in it. But I mean, that's a nothing story anyways. But I just still find that kind of peculiar, that choice, because why not just be in the video game and have it roll along like everybody else? But beyond that, it seems like they've got everything that they've wanted, and plenty of players to choose from, and current players to play with. So that's all going the right direction, it seems like, as well, for this video game.
I sometimes forget that the schools that are leaving for the Pac-12, UCLA still has to pay a ticket, a fine, a toll for joining the Big Ten. To California, the California president recommending that the full throttle amount be used and paid by UCLA to Cal, which would be about a contribution, as Wilner put in his article last night, of $10 million annually to the University of California for their move to the Pac-12. That will be voted on, I think, next Tuesday between the California Board of Regents. 10 million is not a bad little figure. And then if you start, and then you'll start seeing the breakdown. How much is UCLA going to get? And then how much are they going to get minus 10 million? How much was it going to be in the first place before they left? But they're in the Big Ten. So they're in a conference where there's a conference and not on the other side of the country, although they'll be playing Maryland, Rutgers, and others along the way.
Well, those payouts are out there and they're public. We know that. And those payouts are out there and they're public, and that's a weird deal. Good for Cal, I guess, that they get their charity money for basically doing nothing and just being there and being a historic university, I guess, on the West Coast that has the ability, because of the Cal system, to get this handout basically. That's something that you'd rather not have if you were UCLA to deal with, but you're making enough money that $10 million is not that big of a – I mean, it's a big deal, don't get me wrong, but you'd rather be them than be Cal receiving the $10 million handout, basically. So, you're still in a better place if you're UCLA.
Yeah, they call it calimony is what the term is out in the California Board of Regents. Again, it's $10 million annually, not just this first year. It could have been anywhere from $2 million to $10 million. Also, one other note on realignment – Missouri State is joining Conference USA. They become the 12th team in Conference USA. There have been, I believe, 6 FCS schools now that have moved up to different conferences since all hell broke loose in the summer of 2021 with Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC and all of the various things. The wheels have changed and spun around. Missouri State University joins Conference USA effective July of not this year, but next.
Good for them. And I think Grand Canyon and somebody else are joining the WCC. So,
I saw that.
A little bit of conference realignment news.
All right, here's another note.
We can't do it. We have to take a break so I can fix your ears.
No, I hear now.
Oh, you hear now? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That would have been nice to know.
I think you scared me into hearing now.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm good. God, what after yesterday and today? I mean, what we have to finish better.
Yeah.
Here are 4 teams who did not take anybody in the transfer portal. 4 schools, football programs: Army, Navy, Air Force, and Clemson.
Yeah, 3 of those schools are not allowed to take transfers because you need a congressional appointment to go to the school. So even if I wanted to transfer, say, from Clemson to Air Force, I would still have to go through official channels, and it's not even really so much of a transfer as now you're accepting an appointment to the, a military academy. I did a thing on this that's online that people can watch where I broke down a lot of Dabo's comments over the years on our channel, and it is at this point mind-boggling because he's got 100 different explanations for it. He has some good ideas about it, but he said this a couple of years ago or a year ago where he said, look, if I was at the school, some schools where I would have to take transfer portal guys, that might be all I do, but I don't have to do that because I'm at Clemson. Bro, Nick Saban takes transfer player guys. Kirby Smart does. All the schools around you in the ACC are doing it. Like, you can't, so Clemson is so much better than everybody else. You're better than Nick Saban there, buddy? You're better than Saban?
I mean, I don't think he's saying he's better, is he?
I don't think he's saying that, but he is just, I think he's doubling down on how well he recruits, which he still recruits well. But if Nick Saban is having to do it, then buddy, you're kind of missing the boat here.
Yeah, but he knows that. He's not like he's deaf and can't hear anything. He knows full well what the criticism is. So yeah, I don't think he's acting like he's better than anybody. Now, I mean, maybe he is to the extent of we're going to do it this way, and I'm going to show you guys that this is how it can still be done. And if that's the case, then maybe arrogance will jump up and bite him. Time will tell, but it is a risk that you're taking by not dipping in at all. And I know he's got his explanations as to why, but this is a different era than when they were winning national titles. They still had a lot of success last year. Still a top program, but you do wonder of how long he can go down that road, that lonely road all by himself when the service academies, the only reason they're not dabbling in it is just because the rules are different. So, yeah, he's on an island, and either he's going to be able to beat his chest and say, see, I told y'all I could still get it done the more of the old school way, or he's going to probably lose his job because he refuses to adapt, and they're not going to be able to keep up and be as competitive as they once were. So he's taking a bit of a risk, but you've got cachet when you've won a couple of national titles like Dabo has. So we'll see if he can do that again in this new era, but it is a different era than when he was winning those. So, it's a gamble for sure.
We'll have Jeramiah Dickey here momentarily, Director of Athletics at Boise State. Some sad news, no doubt, from earlier today. Jared Atkinson was a wide receiver that played at Baylor. Did not end up his career there. Monique Atkinson, his mother, passed away. She had been battling and fighting through cancer for many, many years. Was really in a bad place about a month to 6 weeks ago. She found a way to battle through that. I had texted Keith, her husband, a few times. He had updated me on Monique. We used to stay in touch quite a bit. She passed away. And again, cancer is a bitch. And so Monique Atkinson, there's the information, the memorial service coming up next Tuesday at the Sweet Home Missionary Baptist Church in Garland, Texas. If you want, I will help you. If you want, contact me. I can tell you about arrangements, flowers, and much more. But Monique Atkinson always had a smile on her face, even though she was hurting and in a lot of pain. She passed away from fighting and because of cancer, and our thoughts and prayers to Keith and the family.
A wonderful family, a wonderful lady. Jared's a great kid, and I mean, they've really been through it. And if you want a picture of someone fighting through and never letting it get her down, it was definitely Monique. We had her on the show several times. We had her on with Jared one time, and it was. I mean, she was. If you want to feel like I'm mad about this today, you would talk to Monique and be like, oh, well, I don't have problems. She's happy, I should be happy. The stuff I'm mad about wasn't worth my time. And she was somebody who had great perspective on the world, and she will be sorely missed. Yeah,
she was a very sweet lady, very tough. She battled cancer for years and had so many ups and downs, I'm sure you're all familiar with if you've had people deal with that in your family. and when it's prolonged and it's just never ending, and you get good news and then a few months later it's bad news, and there's the roller coaster of it all. She was certainly on a roller coaster ride, and just glad that, if anything, now she's able to rest and be pain-free and be at peace. But I know that's no consolation really for the family. So for Keith and Jared and the rest of the Atkinson family, just thinking about you guys. And I know it's been a long time of suffering and just having to deal with that you call it the B word, but that is what it is. It's a C word, cancer. I just that bitch that is cancer. That's just not fun. We've been hit with it here recently, and especially with the prolonged battle. And I know how devastating that is for families. And so I sympathize, and I hope they're doing okay. And Godspeed to a real angel.
Absolutely, she was. We're now joined by Boise State Director of Athletics Jeramiah Dickey with Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, David Smoak too. Jeramiah, great to have you on the show. Did you ever, during the time at Baylor, ever run into or meet Jared Atkinson's mother, Monique?
I did, and my heart and prayers go out to the family. I hated seeing that this morning, and so I just jumped on. I got to hear what you were saying, and praying for them, and I'm so sorry to hear that.
Jeramiah, that's reality, but you also are running the college athletic department at Boise State. How much every day is about what might be the future in college athletics rather than even sometimes enjoying today?
Yeah, that's all I think about, Smoak. And it's part of the job. I can't say that I'm enjoying it or many of my colleagues around the country are enjoying it. But that is what the job is right now. And so we're constantly thinking about what's next and how we can best position ourselves. And we see it changing. It's happening by the hour. I'm paying so much more attention to what's going on, just because, we have to stay ahead of it. And, when you're dependent upon others who are making these decisions that have lasting impacts on an industry that I love and care about, it's a priority for me right now.
Jeramiah, I have this vision in my head, which I know is not true, but it feels like you guys in the athletic department are like Kevin in Home Alone, where he rolls out the battle plan when the wet bandits are coming to get him, because there's so much you have to be ready for and strategize around. Do you feel like there is movement towards the G5 to do more things together and start to try to head off the power conferences at the pass before they cut you guys out even more than they already have?
I somewhat. I mean, I think at the end of the day, our job is to find solutions, and this gap is growing. It has been for many years, and I don't think it's a secret. It's the Power 2 plus 2 and everyone else. And we're trying to stay competitive. We have a national brand. We have expectations that are extremely high in terms of our performance, and obviously I wanted to be somewhere where it mattered, and it definitely matters here. And so for me, I think it's my obligation and duty as I serve Bronco Nation and my institution to make sure that we have a seat at the table, whatever that table looks like. So when you see stuff like the top 25 for a group of fives and some of these proposals that are out there, if anything, I view it as a positive, because people are starting to wake up that this is happening, and whatever control we have, we better start stepping up and taking our responsibility in it. And part of that is telling our own story and creating our own narrative and fighting for that seat, because it's changing by the minute, it feels like. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of one or the other. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that's been proposed. But what I do like is that it allows us to get maybe a little more creative and innovative in our approach. And as ideas come out, just like we threw out promotion relegation last summer, where I start with is why not? And we may get to an answer that, is a yes or a no, but at least it starts conversation, and at least it allows Group of Five athletic directors, to maybe think a little bit different than the industry that we know and love.
Yeah, the relegation thing, I know Bill Connolly of ESPN is a big soccer fan, and he's had that out there for a few years, the idea of that. And I've been watching Welcome to Wrexham here lately, and the whole thing revolves around their promotion and relegation. Does make it exciting. There is that aspect to it. It just seems like you guys, you can't stay stagnant and just expect that you're always going to have a place, and that goes for Boise State and tons and tons of other schools. But you just have to have your head on a swivel, don't you, at all times?
Absolutely. I mean, I was listening to Jamie at Iowa State, there was something this morning, and I appreciate him saying it. It's not just group of five, if I'm one of those programs and whoever they are, but who's at the lower end of those Power Four conferences, I'm looking over my shoulder. We see where it's going, and there has to be a solution. Who are the right people in the room to make those decisions? That's, time will tell, but there has to be a solution to create something that is beneficial to not just the universities, but also the fan bases. And there was something that separated, college athletics from the professional realm. And obviously we know we're going down this road of whether it's collective bargaining, but student athletes, specifically in football and possibly other sports, are going to end up getting paid. And, we see that's here. So how do we best position ourselves, to protect what's still wholesome and good about our industry and our why, which is preparing these kids for life?
How much does the uncertainty or the unknown, does it help with donations and what you need when it comes to competing, or does it hurt?
It's a great question. When you think about, look, at the end of the day, I'm selling hope. Now that the group of five has a seat at the CFP table, that's something we've never had. Boise State would have gone to 3 CFPs, in the past, 15 years, I guess. That's powerful. And so we're selling hope, and our donor base here is buying into it. Our path is not determined, but it's my job to define those expectations. And that's a big part of our vision and narrative that we're putting out to our donors. And I'm very fortunate and grateful they're stepping up and they're buying into it with what I can control. And that's representing this institution.
Jeramiah Dickey, Director of Athletics at Boise State, with us on 365 Sports.
How much are you personally in favor of separate rankings, separate playoff, and things like that? Or before we get to separate playoff, do you need to get to the point of let's see how we do in this current 12-team playoff?
I'll start with the playoff. I've seen what's been proposed, and I'm open to something that still drives our revenues, that allows us to compete on a national stage, and as long as we still have access to the CFP. We have to think differently, bottom line. And for many years we knew this day was coming, and, hindsight's everything, but now we're left and others are dictating our future, and we have to figure out a better path. And, part of that is getting creative and throwing these thoughts and ideas out that, I'm not saying that we'll ever get to promotion relegation, but why not? If it somehow works for others and they're able to monetize it, and it puts pressure on institutions in general to continue to invest and pour into their programs, because we are operating more like a business and within this professional model, then why wouldn't we want that to push, our constituents to support and to show up? So I think we need ideas like this out there. I always see the positive in everything. I think it gets people talking. I think you all are talking about it. I think other media members are talking about it. And hopefully the truth comes out and there's a narrative there that, we can all lock arms around to say, all right, this is what's best for the industry. This is what's best for the fans. This is what's best for the student athletes. A lot of that is getting lost in this. It's about the money, and the money is important because in general, I don't believe higher education is funded at the level it needs to be, specifically if we're going to sponsor intercollegiate athletics. And so we have to figure out a better path, and these ideas allow us to think creatively around it. In terms of the top 25 poll and whatever, one thought is, does that make it more important or more of value for me and our conference if when we play Oregon State this year and they're number 1 in this poll and we're number 2, does that drive more fans, and the business side of this, possibly, I don't know. We've never done it like that, but I always believe there's a positive and but I'm not fully on board with that yet, because to me, it also still, the other side of this, we're then creating more distance from the have and have nots. And that's pushing us towards, this separation. And I firmly believe that is not the direction we should go. I think there's something special about the alumni base and the regionality of our sport programs and what we represent and how we support these communities in a place like Waco, a place like Boise, where we're the biggest game in town. And I think the further and further we separate, the harder it will be. And I think we need to fight and hold on, as much as we possibly can.
You have been at what is a power school when you were with Baylor. But all the other schools you've been at have been the ones who are right now scratching and clawing. But heck, so is Baylor among other schools. When you talk to ADs, not just MAC, but when you talk to ADs who are at the FBS level and a power among those four conferences, do they listen to you?
Well, they take my call. I don't know if they're listening, but I'm very grateful. I have a strong network of colleagues that I call friends, and I think a lot of ADs, it was really interesting in Arizona and for the Final Four, and then back to Arizona for Fiesta and conference meetings. There weren't many ADs that were walking around saying everything is rainbow and sunshine, and that includes the Power Four ADs that I was able to speak with. And I think they're in some ways they're all feeling it. There's how many schools are actually making money on an annual basis, and that number maybe has grown over the course of time, but it's not the majority, and that includes a lot of schools in the Power Four. And when you're trying to keep up because of deferred maintenance and facilities and costs of doing business in general, travel has skyrocketed. My expenses this year went up $2.2 million, and that's not an investment. That's just to keep the lights on, based on what we're navigating. And so there's a lot that athletic directors are managing nowadays. And that's, as my wife says, Smoak, I signed up for it. This is what I wanted. So I'm not complaining. I'm ready to fight and control what I can and continue to put our best foot forward.
How much was Spencer Danielson, your football coach's comments a couple of days ago, taken completely out of context? And was that a firestorm for a while?
It was a firestorm, and in a situation I had not ever had to navigate, at least as an athletic director. And so you learn a lot through that. Really grateful for On3 for taking it down and appreciate them understanding, where we were coming from. And, I think, that's the challenge. Things are sensationalized and taken out of context. And that's what social media is. There's a lot of positive to social media. I love social media. You guys see that I'm pretty active on social media. I think it's a great opportunity to tell our story, but when the story's wrong, it caused problems. And for 48 hours, it was uncomfortable to say the least. But mistakes happen. No one's perfect. And I'm empathetic, but I think that's the challenge when everyone's trying to get, to be the first so they can get retweeted and tell that story. Because in many ways their jobs, are dependent upon it. I think it creates those circumstances where something it gets misquoted or misunderstood or misinterpreted, and that puts us in a tough position. That's not what our coach was saying, and we are a blue collar brand, and we do not have money trees like many of the institutions out there, and they're with the portal and transfers, with the portal and transfer, is coming in and out, and we have to be so strategic, I should say, and fiscally responsible in terms of the funding that our collective and it has. But the name, image, and likeness space, we've separated it. There's the collective and there's name, image, and likeness here, and everyone has an opportunity for name, image, and likeness, and everyone has the ability to promote their brand, and we are going to provide those opportunities, and we educate them on it, and we try to professionally develop them through it, and that's who we are. And so I think a lot was taken out of context, but I'm glad the record has been set straight, and I know Spencer's been on some some various radio calls, and I'm grateful for our local media and for the story that they continue to tell for us.
Well, then let's talk practicality when it comes to that, Jeremiah. So obviously you have your policy, like you said, NIL and collective are separate. How has that been received by those freshman athletes, by the families, by the parents? Obviously, it's not something you guys would hammer down and stick with if you didn't have, a pretty, I guess, positive rollout to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at our recruiting class, which I believe was number one in our conference. You look at the transfers that came in, and you look at the fact that we didn't lose, a student athlete that in this cycle of the portal, that maybe we, they weren't leaving. They were leaving in a good headspace. They wanted to play more and maybe didn't see the opportunity here. So I think it's working really well. I know Spencer does a tremendous job with the families and connecting with them and being, if you ever talk to Spencer, I mean, what you see is what you get. He reminds me a lot of Scott Drew, and he's honest and he's going to be transparent. And, there's a piece of this that, for us to continue to compete, we need to find guys that fit, our Bronco way. And, and we found them, and it was really cool to see some of the parents come out and in support, of how we're operating and and how we serve those student athletes. We love them dearly. We care about them, and we want what's best for them. And, we're just maybe different than some others, and that's okay. But I think it's paid dividends for us because that's who we are.
Jeremiah, you arrived there in January of 21. All hell broke loose that summer with Texas and Oklahoma and every summer since then. Was Boise State ever directly or indirectly contacted by anybody in the Big 12 about that summer, after that summer?
Not necessarily directly. I mean, obviously my job is to make the calls and
Sure.
try to position ourselves. And so there were definitely conversations with many of my counterparts within the conference and then also the conference office. But there was never an offer or we never got to that place of the conversation. So much was happening and everyone was still trying to figure out what was going on. And so much has happened since then. So I really appreciate, Brett and, their commissioner and people like Mac who, took my calls and they heard, our story and ultimately we're a proud partner and member of the Mountain West and we believe we're exactly where we're supposed to be at this point in time, and we're going to continue to pour in and invest and try to do that much more because we're never a finished product, and get back to those Fiesta Bowl years that everyone remembers and loves.
Jeremiah, I don't ask this for clickbait. I think you know that we don't really operate that way, trying to just get the salacious headlines. And we heard your coach loud and clear the first time he talked. I mean, honestly, but when it comes to realignment, you know what a hot topic that is. Do you think it's kind of slowed down and kind of come to a pause, or do you think that the last couple summers is sort of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to movement around the college sports landscape from your point of view?
It's hard to say if it slowed down or not. Is it stopped? No.
Right.
Obviously, everyone's following, whatever's going on in the South and Southeast in terms of the ACC and some of these lawsuits. And I can't speak to them. I don't have all the details and know the inner workings of those, that conference and, the why and everything else. But, I don't believe that it stopped. I think you're continuing to see, we saw, on a much smaller level, but we saw two programs go to the West Coast Conference today in basketball. It's going to continue. And I also think that you could potentially see things pivot back to maybe what makes more sense. And, the student athlete experience is still a priority. And, traveling across the country in these national conferences that have formed, I'm really grateful for what the Mountain West is for us. We are regionally based and probably the only conference that actually makes sense in terms of how we're set up outside of the SEC. And I'm grateful for that because it provides our donors, it provides our students, it provides our families and our alums an opportunity to support the Broncos. And I think that's something that's important.
I know you've given us a lot more time than we asked for. When you look at Boise State and the group of five with now the college football playoff, which was brought up earlier, if they're going to 12, do you think there's honestly ever a chance that a group of five would have more than one team in that playoff if it stays at 12?
I think it'd be really difficult. I think it could, a lot of this is based on when you look at Cincinnati a couple years ago, and I believe they were the only group of five that had made it, to the CFP at that point. They had to have, I think, 3 consecutive elite football seasons where I think they lost maybe 1 game in that time. So they were starting the year off ranked. And I think that's a big part of it. As a group of 5 school, and I'll speak for us, we got to do everything we possibly can to be included earlier on in the season. And that means you have to stack your seasons. And it can't just be a one-off. We got to do well this year. We got to do well next year, and so on and so forth, and not putting any additional pressure, on my team. But that's the reality of it. And I think that's why you see these ideas of, well, let's create a group of 5, top 25 and whatever. But, under the current, setup, it's unfortunate, you take the scraps, but I'm just grateful that we have an opportunity and we have a seat at that table now. And whether it's us, whether it's someone else in our conference, God willing, or it's someone in the American or any other conference, that is powerful, and it helps tremendously in terms of brand and continuing to promote, your institutions and your conference. So, anything's possible. I'm never going to say it's not, but it's getting harder and harder to schedule. It's getting harder and harder to get home and homes with those Power Fours. It's becoming challenging, and we got to continue to chop wood and figure out a way, because I know the goal for every conference is to have someone in there. But that's progress, that we at least have a seat, and and we're going to fight tooth and nail for that seat.
Boise State couldn't have somebody any better. So how beautiful is the view in Boise, Idaho?
It's honestly, guys, it's amazing. Having 4 seasons and this community, it's a beautiful place. And, I think you can ski, raft, mountain bike, camp, and, swim in the same day, just based on the mountains and the surrounding areas. And it's beautiful. You need to make it up here for a trip. Maybe you could put a little pressure on Mac to do a home and home with me.
There you go.
He returns my calls until I start calling about scheduling. And
Well,
then,
he's been busy with Scott Drew, though. He had to get through that. I'm sure you weren't. You kind of enjoyed watching him have to squirm there for a little bit.
No, honestly, I was texting him I was praying for him and to keep his head up. I love the man dearly, and I am bullish and biased. I think he's the best AD in the country, and I hope Baylor understands what they have, because I knew he was going to fight and he was going to do what was best for the Bears, and I'm glad Scott stayed, and I think Scott is Baylor, and they're a great team, and but I was texting him and he was. It gets lonely in these chairs. And so, you depend on sometimes your colleagues, because, not many people fully understand the pressure and the stresses and, the personal and professional that we're navigating. And so hopefully I was, maybe someone that at that point in time, I'm not sure how many people were reaching out to him to say, I love you and keep your head up. You're going to figure this out. And he did.
Jeremiah, I'll tell you, I did a show last year in Orlando, UCF. That was really fun. This year I'm going to go to SMU because they're hosting a very important team in FSU. So I have to be there for that, just to make sure it goes off without a hitch. But look, you say the word and I'll make sure that at least me and hopefully these guys can get up there. I'll sleep on the blue turf if I have to.
No, you can stay with me. We'd love to have you. And, I'm trying to get some more games down in your area, and so I'll keep you posted on what that looks like. But we would love to have you come to a game, and if anything, just make it up here to vacation. Take a long weekend. It's Boise's an amazing place.
Jeremiah, I just wanted to tell you, as part of the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, Ashton Genty was there as one of the finalists, and I know he was in the news recently talking about when Spencer Danielson was talking about players that others were coming after. He's at the top of the list for you guys, a certain star. Just wondering if he's as good of a young man as he seemed to be when he was in Tyler, Texas for that ceremony. Heard nothing but rave reviews about just how he represented the brand of Boise State football, and just wanted your perspective on the player and the person that Ashton Genty is.
Guys, he's the real deal. There's a reason he's still here, and the number of teams that reached out, which, is inappropriate because he never entered the portal, but it is what it is. That's what this day and age is in college athletics. And so we're fighting the good fight. But when you have a guy like that in your foxhole and he wants to be a Bronco and he's a Texas kid. And so, I love Ash. He's a tremendous, man off the field, and what he does in our community and how he embraces the fans. And what he did was cement his legacy in Boise State history. And, regardless of what happens this year, and success is not guaranteed, but he works like no other. And, I think his teammates embrace him and love him, and this community loves him. And he is everything that you got to see. And I'm really proud of him. He's a true junior, and so played very early on in his career. And I want to say, guys, like he was like a wide receiver in high school. You all may know more about him, but that's who we are. We go out and find guys like that, diamonds in the rough. And there's so many examples of that, over the history of our program. But he was one of those guys, and he's grown into just an unbelievable person on and off the field of play. And I'm proud of him, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play this year.
Jeramiah, thank you so much for your time, and a lot of it too on many topics. Good luck moving forward, and also taking on everything that's right in front of you. We miss seeing you, but glad to have you on the show. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Miss you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Jeramiah Dickey. That's a full throttle on basically every level of a G5 director of athletic or someone who's involved and is very much involved in college athletics in other ways too. Really appreciate a lot of what he said. Anything out of that? I know we have Grayson next, but
yeah, I
wish Metal was in the chat. I'm sorry.
I wish I would have rephrased my question a little bit about the future realignment, because he's right. Like, I didn't mean to act like lower, quote unquote, lower level moves like what we saw at the today in the headlines, like not discounting that, but just kind of that general feel. But yeah, I think everybody's just sort of hinging on the ACC basically, and whatever happens out there will be a domino that affects everybody else and potentially a Boise State. I think that's because let's face it, if you rebuild the Pac-12, how's Boise State not in that thing? Yeah. Right. So, or whatever else might be an alternative. So yeah, they definitely just have to be ready for that moment. And I think that they obviously have great leadership and they are geared up to be able to pivot, but it is a difficult thing because on the one hand, this is what we've been talking about with all these ideas being thrown out. You're trying to think of these great ideas to keep yourself as relevant as possible, to make money, to have opportunities. And at the same time, you're kind of being, forced, pushed out of the way a little bit. And you don't want to capitulate and give in to what, you're being like, that's the whole thing is like the playoff's a good idea in a way, but you're also giving in to Greg Sankey and what they would like to do with the overall playoff. And so you don't want to fully make that move, but you do have to have that option. So I think this is what I said the entire time about this is I think they're being smart and at least just making sure that there are exit roads that are already built up and available, but you're not just willingly going to drive off of the main road. And so I think that's where we are with schools like Boise State, and that's smart.
Well, look, with my top five yesterday, I kind of laid out the benefits to it. And one of the things I'll tell you is, look, if they so Boise State makes the playoff, let's just say they're in. Well, then you've got, 12 teams below them that probably, could make a playoff. Use the bowl games, use the same kind of format, home games in the first round, bowl games, especially the lesser ones that you're in anyway, because then it creates even more heat. Because why am I going to watch the Poinsettia Bowl, normally, but now you put some sauce on it, I might go, oh, hey.
If it's a part of the playoff,
yeah,
then any bowl game, no matter if it's one that has struggled or one that's not on a radar as much as some of the others, it's going to be successible.
Yeah, so
there's not going to be a bowl game attached to the playoff that's not successful.
Yeah, so you put a G5 playoff in a bowl game that's a G5 bowl game, and that has an arrangement with it already, right? Someone that's they're kind of
in a separate playoff.
No, I'm talking if they did a separate playoff, if they did the separate playoff.
My whole thing is they're not going to do that willingly. They have to have the ideas, because if you're forced off the road, you want to be prepared for it, but they're also not looking to do that. They're not wanting to do that. Yeah.
Like I said, if they did that, then partner with the bowl games that are kind of struggling and make it the playoff. And then you're helping kill two birds with one stone. At least you're trying as much as you can, because what other way do you have to close the revenue gap without new ideas?
Yeah, well, a bowl game that has two teams, no matter what level, in a playoffs atmosphere is going to bring more fans and interest. Yeah.
So, if it was
there's some that are played, and I don't even know they're being played, and it's my job to cover college football. It's got so jumbled. Good stuff. Great stuff, Jeramiah Dickey. Hey, later in the show, probably a little bit after 4, Jamie Pollard, who has joined our show probably 5 or 6 times, the AD at Iowa State. You heard Jeremy allude to that, had some comments. Jeremiah allude to that. On that, hey, if you're that bottom level tier of, even if you are in that Power 2 or what could be the Super 2, watch your back. We'll have that, and he gives some pretty good examples on that too.
And I want to say this. I was talking to Jeremiah and them. I actually, gosh, he should have given us more time. No, but Boise State is one of those that came out last fall, I believe it was, and talked about promotion and relegation. And I mentioned that kind of just in passing with him. We didn't really dive deep into that. And I have been watching more Welcome to Wrexham here lately. And I know that, again, I mentioned in talking with Jeremiah there, Bill Connolly's had the sort of idea out there for a while. I'm not totally open to it. It does make more sense to me now than ever before. However, and I'll just say this, and the whole idea about the Super League. Any true Super League that's based on Premier League football and that whole relegation idea does not include Mississippi State, and it doesn't include Arkansas, and it doesn't include about a dozen other teams, because it's not a 40-team league, the Premier League. It's not. It's not the Champions League is not 50 teams. So any idea that Indiana and Illinois and Northwestern and I can name 6 schools from either one of the Super 2. In a real true Super League, if that's really what the end goal is, a bunch of them are not in it either. Right? That's the thing.
And they wouldn't get back up for a while.
Well, they could earn their way, but yeah.
I'm telling you, they would. There's a good chance that Northwestern could get relegated and then live there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's the thing is if and it doesn't have to be that. It can be its own 40 college team football version or college football team version of that. But if you really want to talk about it it's the Champions League or something along those lines, then yeah, it's not just these 2 conferences and they're all super elite. It's no. It would literally be the same top 20 teams historically that we talk about that lead every single category. That would be a true Super League of teams, not seeing Northwestern versus freaking, whoever you want to, not Wake Forest, but Vanderbilt. That's not a Super League game. So we probably need to workshop the title if, in fact, it ever goes to that, a Power 2. That is more of the deal. But a Premier League type, it would not be just including those 2 conferences.
It's exactly what Jamie Pollard was discussing.
Oh, well, I'm sorry for killing his thunder there.
No. He didn't say it exactly that way, but very much it's going to be perfect to set that up for what we have a little bit after 4 o'clock. Tim Brando will join us today a little after 5, but coming up next, Grayson Grundhoefer, 365 sports football and recruiting analyst. And this is a show every day at 3 until 6. We appreciate the growing audience. Subscribers, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. And don't forget triple option 1 until 2 every day with Paul. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, one of the sponsors that brings us the Academic All-Stars team, will honor student athletes next Wednesday at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff with a business that helps you save money and also helps you find out what might be shutting you down, why you can't function. I've had different injuries. You have too. Almost everybody has, where you have an injury where you're always battling it. You can't sleep. You toss and turn. You can't focus. And you have something that's inside of you, a muscle, a ligament, whatever it is that just hurts. And your doctor's trying to figure it out. They need a better look. If they want to get an MRI, they should know, and they do, about Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace in Waco. And you suggest it to them if they don't know. And if they don't, you might want to get a different doctor. Obviously, I'm joking about that, but IdealMRI.com, $497 or less every single time, and you get the images and the diagnosis soon after, by usually that evening, of what they were looking for inside of a state-of-the-art imaging machine that I've been in 3 different times. and every time it's been a great, great situation. Tech specialists are fantastic. Those who read the MRI, Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in the southern part of Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales at Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
365 Sports closing out this 3 o'clock hour. Grayson Grundhoefer, football analyst. He does more than football, but football analyst and recruiting as well. Can talk men's basketball with the best of them, too. Joins us on 365 Sports. Grayson, so they had that weekend where they had 3 players that they got in the transfer portal. Then they got Thomason. How many more spots are available, or is that kind of a chess match right now and matching up what they have available with what they want?
Yeah, guys, I mean, right now it's definitely still a little bit of a chess match. I think Baylor's still trying to work out, not just how many spots they have, but also where to utilize those spots. So right now, I think if you're kind of predicting it, if you're kind of just trying to put a number on it, I would put the number at most at 3. And I 3 has been the number that I've been working with for a while now, since they got Thomason. And I still believe at least one of those spots will be used on the offensive line, if not 2 of them. And then from there, it just becomes, what kind of best available prospect would they want to take, whether it's a defensive back or a wide receiver, just truly a best available at any position. I could see them doing that as well. But I think that's kind of what I guess people should be expecting at the moment, is maybe 3 with still a clear emphasis on the offensive line.
Grayson, have they? I know that they reached out to a lineman in the portal this week, or that's he might be taking a visit. Who was that, and who might they also be looking at on the front?
Right. So South Carolina offensive lineman Sidney Fugar, he's actually taking an official visit on Monday. So that's kind of the biggest, latest news that I guess has come up over the past week or so. So he'll take an official visit. He's already been to Colorado and UCLA as well. So a lot of competition for him. He played at Western Illinois before transferring to South Carolina, and pretty much exclusively played guard. Has played tackle at both of his stops. At Western Illinois, it was left tackle. At South Carolina, it was left tackle at the beginning of the year, but he struggled. So they moved him to right tackle, and he played a little bit better. But still a guy that you're kind of hoping hits his upside. I don't think he's played his best football of his career yet, but I do think that his best football is ahead of him. He's about 6'5", 325 pounds, but what I find to be the most interesting thing really about him is that, Colton Thomason right now, the thought is he'll start at tackle, but Fugar is also a tackle, at least he has been throughout his career. So it's a little interesting to me that Baylor would kind of heavily rely on 2 guys playing tackle when kind of my initial thought was they would at least want a starting guard or 2 there. So I still think there's some moving parts there. Maybe one of those guys ends up being a guard in the near future. But yeah, Sidney Fugar, that's kind of the biggest name that has popped up. He would also have 2 years of eligibility for those who are interested in kind of the timeline there.
What holes do you see defensively still out there? Defensive line is. I know you mentioned Jack quite a bit. The star position. What levels are you still concerned about defensively? Because I think obviously the lines on both sides are the number one I think target for this team. But beyond that, on that side, especially with Aranda taking over.
It's interesting because I think for me, I have a few more concerns than I think the staff does. Because you kind of look at how they've been recruiting. They really haven't focused on the defensive side of the ball since they were able to land, the guys early in the portal period, Jacquez Evans, Linus Noel, and Lorando Johnson. They really haven't focused on that side of the ball much. And so for me, I think it's pretty clear offensive line is still the position that they're most, wanting to add at. And then I think beyond that, I think they could add a defensive lineman. I think that could make some sense. I think they could add a younger linebacker because, while they have a lot of guys on the roster there, I'm not sure that they hit on a lot of guys who are actually going to be extremely impactful in the future. I think they have some, but I think they could add another young guy there. I also think at safety, there's room to maybe add a young guy as well. So I see some positions that they could take some guys, but I also see the facts are, they don't have a lot of room. And I think for this team to be successful, they have to be better on the offensive line. And so because of that, they're really restricted in how much they're able to recruit other positions, specifically on defense. And I will say one more thing on the defensive side. They were really young a year ago, and I think they're truly counting on, them adding just a couple guys on the defensive side and then saying, hey, you know what, we're going to develop these young guys being really good, impactful players this next year. And we don't necessarily need to take a ton of transfers. And we'll see if that works. You got to be able to develop guys if you're Baylor. And so we're going to be able to truly find out if they're able to do that, especially with Dave Aranda taking over on the defensive side of things.
We're getting into the portion of the semester where it's the semester's ending. I'm watching a lot of people around town starting to pack up, head back to the hometown or to wherever they're going for the summer. How surprised are you that as we get into the summer period that there's still not a starting quarterback named?
I think at this point, my hunch was honestly after the spring game, since they didn't announce someone, I kind of expected them to just let it drag out into fall camp.
Yeah.
Really. And so I kind of think that's what's happening. I think it'd be very weird if you just came out with a graphic, at the start of June or whatever, naming a starting quarterback. So I think it just kind of tells me that, Sora Robertson and Jaquan Finn have done enough that, maybe both of them deserve a chance to win the job in the fall. And I think some people would have said that, maybe Baylor should have done that in 2022 with Gary Bohannon and Blake Shapen, and they decide not to. So maybe it's a little bit of an adjustment there and just saying, hey, you know what? We're going to go into the fall. We're going to let these guys continue to compete. We got a new offense coming in, so let's try to see kind of how these guys grow and adjust over the summer and then go from there. So I would say after the spring, since they didn't name one after the spring game, it's not really surprising to me. But I would have told you that I would have been shocked, before spring ball. I would have been stunned if they didn't name one by the end of it, but we're already past that point now.
Grayson, one of the most, digested and dissected comments from Dave Aranda from last season might have been when I asked him, do you think you have Big 12 championship caliber roster? And he said, yes, he did. And it was obviously they did not. And he was trying to maybe believe in the players that he had. Do you feel like this roster, based on what they have added, who they have coming in from high school, and what they have coming back that's a year older, is closer to that or not?
They are definitely closer than they were a year ago. And I mean, just to be honest with that statement by Dave Aranda, I think we all pretty much got that vibe from the entire staff last year that they felt like their team was far more talented than they ended up being. And I just think it was plain and simple, just kind of a misevaluation of talent, honestly. And so you kind of saw that as the season went on. They just simply were not talented in multiple games last year where they got blown out. I think you look at this year, the emphasis on the transfer portal has been absolutely key. The fact that they've gone out and added some guys that are actually, really highly coveted from other schools and guys that, they're hoping to actually hit on these evaluations. And then I also think, the young guys on the roster that I think they were expecting to make a jump, I think now, you see them in year 2 or year 3. I think it maybe is a little bit more realistic that jump actually happens. And so, I think in general, they're in a much better situation. I think that there's a belief there that they're in a better situation. I think what they've done in the transfer portal really, I think is going to solidify those things. And we can talk about scheme and all of that, those changes as well, which I do think will help. But I think they're at a point now where they go into almost every game this season and they're going to expect to at least be in it. But to be honest, guys, in the Big 12, this happens every year. The margin is razor thin. And so even if you have the talent to compete, it's those little things that have to go your way if you're truly going to be a team that, goes from 3 wins to 8 wins. They're going to have to hit on some of those margin things. But I do think their roster is good enough for them to be pretty confident that they can make a bowl game if they, develop and if they're coached the way they're going to need to be going into the season.
Grayson, any news on the basketball front?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked last week, and they were able to land Norchand O'Meara, which was huge. Landing one of the best transfer portal guys. I mean, that guy's a difference maker. I mean, the things that he can do from a rebounding standpoint, a physicality standpoint, an athleticism standpoint, he's just an absolutely awesome culture fit and a guy that's going to fit right in. And he and Jeremy Roach being additions are really going to round out that roster nicely. I will say they probably have 2 more spots available. I think the pretty obvious consensus is they're going to take a backup center of some kind. Maybe not someone that's going to play a ton, but someone that they believe can be, a role player for them. And then, of course, I do think they're also going to take another 4, a guy that's kind of more like a Jalen Bridges type, a guy that can shoot the basketball, but is closer to 6'6", 6'7", who you can count on to play, major minutes, whether that is starting next to Norchand O'Meara or whether that's coming off the bench for O'Meara when he slides to the 5. I think they desperately need someone like that. And I think over the next week, I think they're going to end up finding a guy like that.
Grayson, this is just from part of the conversations with college football about if whatever the future might be at some point, if there's a breakaway. How many teams do you think would be in any kind of an upper echelon level of the Autonomy 4?
So if you're saying there's only 2 leagues, is that kind of what you're hinting at?
Or just whatever that number might be, whether it's 2 conferences or 1 or 5 or whatever.
Okay.
How many teams do you feel like is a legitimate number of who should be included?
I think 60 is the number. That's the number that I think that would be probably. I think that would probably be the high end of the number as well. But I do think that when people start saying 48 or 40 or 36. That is too few schools. But if you get to 60, I think you can start making a pretty reasonable argument for certain schools being in it, certain schools not being in it. But I think 60, and that would essentially be three conferences with 20, or you get to the NFL model where, there's two conferences of 30 or 32 teams, and then you have your 60, 64 teams, then work it out from there. But I think that's kind of the number range that I would be looking at.
All right, thank you very much, Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim365.com, 365 Sports Football and recruiting analyst. He's all over it. The different. I can't keep up with it. Don't want to keep up with it. And even now, more than ever before, you used to always worry about but focus on the high school players entering or coming to official visits or not. And now you have to add it into the transfer portal, which is a different animal completely. When we come back, Jamie Pollard, the AD at Iowa State, with some comments. And really, I'm not saying I've been saying this for a while, but I think I have been saying what you're about to hear for quite some time. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store. And if you ordered live crawfish back before 6 o'clock on Wednesday, right now, those 30-pound bags are open and available for you, and also through how they're open tomorrow at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Full-service butcher shop, full-service bakery, the bakery with all the sweets and treats you can imagine, plus fresh baked bread and kolaches every day. The butcher shop with pork and poultry, beef and seafood there too. And if you want to do a crawfish boil, 30-pound sacks of live crawfish if you order by 6 o'clock on Wednesday. They have the potatoes, corn on the cob, crab legs, the seasoning, what you want, they have it. And, the sausage too. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, a long-time tradition, also supplying restaurants not just in Waco but throughout Texas with what they need. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. It is time to announce the 14th annual Academic All-Stars team right here on 365 Sports. Hi, this is David Smoak. Our 20 Academic All-Stars have an overall grade point average of 103.2. 5 members are headed to a military academy. There are 6 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians. Our 2024 Academic All-Stars team includes Ryder Bagley from Groesbeck, Chilton's Colton Bossy, West Cole Bryant, Casey Cavanaugh from Troy, Lorena's Emily Flores, Whitney's J.C. Green, Franklin's Sarah Heisler, Academy's Madeline Hammonds, Waco High's Alexis Hookham, Kate Humphreys from Clifton, Marshall Cobb of Midway, Temple's Claire Little, Salado's Case Magin, Houston Powers of Crawford, and Thorndale's Emily Reeves, Landon Richardson of Lampasas, Milford's Shimon Rogers Jr., Brady Schultz of Abbott, March Monty Swainer, and Avery Thaler from Fairfield. The 2024 Academic All-Stars team is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, Westdale Asset Management, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ray Broker, Air Conditioning and Heating, HEB, Award Specialties, Healer Printing, Wolf Florist, Baylor Club, and the Waco Foundation. We will honor the 14th annual Academic All-Stars team at our annual banquet, Wednesday, May 15th at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. We're proud to recognize these elite student athletes in Greater Central Texas, our 14th annual Academic All-Stars team, right here on 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
So Jamie Pollard, the AD at Iowa State, was talking to some local media, and one of the potential of something separating when it comes to college football is the possibility that everyone, okay, if you're a part of the SEC or you're part of the Big Ten, you're protected. But are you? You would think that at some point, if it continues to get where they the big eat everybody, that there are some in those 2 conferences that are not big that might be left behind. Now, that's one thing I've always loved about the SEC, and I guess the Big Ten too, is they have protected everybody. Whether you're a private school or a smaller school, they have always had your back, and they've always been as strong as the weakest link, depending on what you would consider that. Jamie Pollard of Iowa State was asked about the future of college athletics. Listen to what he says, and then we'll come back, get your feedback in the chat. Craig and Paul, and I will also, and Garrett, have our opinions too. It's about 1 minute, 30 seconds.
You just have to look at the evolution. It isn't the SEC and Big Ten. You just have to look at the evolution. It isn't the SEC and Big Ten. It's those that have all the gold, make all the rules, right? So if I was a member of the Big Ten or the SEC, I'd start looking over my shoulder and wondering when's the day going to come when the top of the SEC is not going to want the bottom of the SEC. I mean, go back and look at times when the AFL and the NFL merged, they only needed 1 commissioner. And when the ABA and the NBA merged, they only needed 1 commissioner. There's going to come a day they don't need 2 $6 million a year commissioners, and they're going to eat their own. And if we think that's not going to happen, you're a fool, because we didn't think the Pac-12 would get eaten, and it did. And, the CFP is just another example of our industry running amok, and they're trying to, swallow the ACC and the Big 12. And I wish them all the best, because they're going to eat their own.
So you think the Big Ten and SEC do not exist separately at some point? Is that what you're saying, I guess, in terms of how you phrase it with the commissioners?
I'm just saying, from an evolution standpoint, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, is the Pac-12 going to be existent in 2025? I think all of us would have said yes. So you don't have to look back very far to see what's happened, and you can see what's happening. And so it's reasonable to project into the future and say, why wouldn't you think that will just continue, that those with the gold will make the rules?
All right, that's from Jamie Pollard. He was on a Cyclone Tailgate Tour event in West Des Moines and a lot of the media that was there to cover that and what he was saying. There was a lot said there. And I've always felt that way, that even if you are in a conference right now that has your back, if it continues to get big enough and some of the schools that were not a part of the SEC before that also will eat their own as it gets bigger and bigger, then there's a chance that maybe you get left behind at the next level. Maybe not the actually next step, but at some point down the road.
Well, the question has to remain, like, if it's about building the best television broadcast that you can build, you know, and what the SEC has tried to do is every week almost is going to be, you know, they want to have brand versus brand every week. Brand versus brand multiple times a week. And there are some schools in the SEC that we know are not that way. There's even more in the Big Ten that are not that way. Of the 18 schools in the six, so of those 34 schools, you know, less than half of them overall are as big a deal as some schools that are outside of that. And so, again, especially if you see what happens with the ACC, if there are bigger brands to take and they decide to do that, like, when down the line does it get to the point where, like, you know, Vanderbilt, you're not helping us out any? Like, especially since this isn't about, you know, the specter that it was about, like, pairing up academic things is kind of over now. I mean, because clearly, if it was about that, then Stanford and Cal would be able to just say, we'd like to be in the SEC. And then, like, all right, well, I guess we got to take you because of the books and all. Yep. That's not how it is. So if it's about television and people watching more television stuff, what would you rather see? Would you rather see Ohio State play Clemson, or would you rather see Ohio State play Indiana?
I mean, that's the thing, though, is
and that's not necessarily people. That's the television executives who make these calls.
Yeah, but I will say on that part, like, Indiana is what? It's the Indianapolis market, and Vanderbilt's Nashville, and it's Northwestern's Chicago, and Rutgers is New York, New Jersey. And so that's why they even have the weight that they do to begin with. So do you go and eliminate those markets? Like, I mean, do you willingly take them out because you just feel like you're going to have them? You know what I mean, though? Like, there's a reason why they have some cachet. But, I think he's spot on, though. I mean, like I said earlier, I think if you're talking about, if you're doing Champions League, then there's no need to all this cutting, and there's plenty of teams from various conferences that you could have that are still a part of it. It's a wide swath of teams. But if you're talking about being the Premier League, like some people fast forward to, then I'll go ahead and go down the list right now. Illinois, you're out. Indiana, see ya. Iowa, gone. Maryland, peace. Michigan State, probably not there. Minnesota, no. Northwestern, no chance. Purdue, not a chance. Rutgers, see ya. I mean, that you could easily do that. SEC, Arkansas, no. Kentucky, no. Mississippi State, no. South Carolina, no. Vanderbilt, no. And we can get more into the weeds and actually debate on, like, some of those others as well. And I'm sure before we get to this, I'm just talking about football, okay? I'm just talking about if you want to do, like, real deal Premier League American college football, like, you could toss away 8 to 10 teams that I just mentioned there, and then you get into, like, basically the top 20 all-time winningest teams. Now, that would be some really interesting stuff. But I'm not as interested in, like, it's just the Big Ten and the SEC pretend that they're the NFL. I don't have as much interest in that. Now, if you want to take, like, the top 20 and you say, like, this is the elite of the elite, and you want to match them up on a Saturday or every single Saturday, then I think you're onto something. But if you're still just feeding me, like, Texas versus Vandy and acting like it's some super league, well, I'm going to call BS on that, right? Because that's not what that is. Now, if you've earned your way into that, that's one thing. But if you're just grandfathered in, that's something else entirely. So I don't think the Premier League comparisons of what we're going for are exact. And I also don't think that's what it has to be. It can be just these two leagues feel like, because they've got all the money and the biggest markets and they've scooped up everybody that's worth scooping up or will have done that in the next 2 to 3 years, that they feel like a 50-team or 60-team or whatever type league is going to be, the solution. But I do think that there is more cutting of the fat that will occur. I don't know if it'll get all the way down to the bone where, like I mentioned, where it's like the truly like the 20 elite teams. But I do think that, there's going to be some teams that just don't really belong in the grand scheme of things, that maybe were grandfathered in or marketed in or whatever. The commissioner one's great. There's not an AFC commissioner and an NFC commissioner. So with that example, people, that would seem to ring true as well. That, yeah, even if you're safe right now, seemingly, you might not be in 2 to 3 years. But there's so many, like I just laid out, there's so many directions it can still go. And nobody knows what direction except for probably the folks who are, orchestrating it behind the scenes, much like they've orchestrated a lot of these other moves. And whether that's TV executives or Greg Sankey or Petiti or whoever you want to point to, I mean, I guess they're really the only people that have a real clue of what we're headed towards. And I bet they're having a lot of fun just watching us, like,
twisting the wind.
Just
not us, but schools.
Well, and us too, of just like wondering what the hell's going on. But yeah, I when I think of the soccer comparison, I'm saying you got to cut like half the teams that are even in those two leagues or close to it to get to really what that would look like. So I don't know if that's really feasible because that's a lot of teams you're leaving out in the cold. But you're also doing that even if you're just doing the two leagues. So, yeah, man, it's a mystery as to what this all looks like on the other side of it, and I'm fascinated by it. I'm also leery of it, but
for those schools that say no, we're protected, ask Oregon State, Washington State what it's like right now, because they were a part of an alpha conference with some great universities. Justin R., as someone on the outside looking in, I could see the SEC and the Big Ten switching sometime in the future to a performance-based system like the ACC wants. Paul, is that in effect now?
Yeah, I think so. I think
so they're in a performance-based system?
Well, they're more almost like it's not performance-based. Like everybody's going to get the same except for like if you do better, you're going to get more of the cut of the postseason stuff.
Okay,
so,
well, that to me, that's fair.
Yeah.
Instead of everything being split.
I also think, too, like there's different conversations going on. Like there's the one that includes basketball, and then there's the one that's just football only.
Yeah.
And they're very different things because Kentucky's not getting in on football merits alone.
Yeah.
But they would in basketball. So that's one of those where, it's not quite clear really any direction of exactly where this all goes ultimately and what the final product looks like. But yeah, I think that's also a different conversation.
I think the simplest thing to do is eventually it's going to be because especially the way that this settlement and all these things will go and the way they'll have to tier out sports. I don't think they're going to be too long for these cross-country trips for the non-revenue sports. I think that's probably going to get resolved a lot faster than we even realize. And, especially with football, if football breaks off and then, you probably keep the football and basketball conferences the same just for, your continuity, but then everything else goes back to being regional. So then you get to the point of like, all right, then it starts getting down to, well, what do we really want this to be? Separate football and all this, and who's really in this deal, and is there a tier off where we just tell the group of five, like, listen, you had your nice little 5-6 years of doing this, but you're really kind of bothering us now, and we'd like you to go.
Somebody said that if they're going to eat each other, Sankey would win that over Petiti. I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of athlete.
Well, I don't think. Look, here's the difference. I don't think Tony Petiti, because he's a television network exec, is necessarily in this for the long haul. I think he's someone who, like, if he made his bones, boosted out after a few years.
You mean he's not long-term like Kevin Warren?
I think he's longer than Kevin Warren. But, yeah, I think he's obviously longer.
He already lasted longer than Kevin Warren, I think.
So, like, he's longer than Kevin Warren. But Greg Sankey, this is the business he's chosen. And I'm using that quote from The Godfather for a reason. In that, like, you will pry him out of college athletics by his, with his cold, dead hands, So that's why I think that he would win out over everybody, because he's Greg Sankey, and that's what he's in. He's one of the last ones that's truly in the business of college athletics. Brett Yormark is new to the business of college athletics. Tony Petiti, new to the business of college athletics. Heck, the new AD at Notre Dame is a TV exec who's a Notre Dame alum, but new to college athletics. The last two are Greg Sankey, who has power, and Jim Phillips, who has a job.
And Yormark was not a part of college athletics, although he was a part of college promotion. Paxton, isn't the Super Conference the best team, so it shouldn't be surprising the bottom teams wouldn't be in it? One thing, I've said this again, the SEC and the Big Ten. Go ahead.
Well, no, because it depends on what like that. That's again what I was trying to say about how there's like different arguments ongoing. Like there's this idea that when you mention Super League, like people have different interpretations of that. Some people think it's just the Big Ten and the SEC getting together. and that's a super league. I disagree. I don't think that's a super league because I think there's a bunch of Cleveland Browns, like the Cleveland Browns I grew up with. I think there's a bunch of Cleveland Browns in that league, and I don't think that they're super league teams. But in some people's eyes, that's the super league, is those two conferences. And then some people, I guess probably the same people, it's those two, and then it's like Florida State, and it's Clemson, and it's, North Carolina, whatever. It's like the other ACC leftovers. And then for some people, like Kansas gets in, and so again, it depends on where you look. But to me, if you're trying to do like a true Premier League, then yeah, you're cutting some fat from both the Big Ten and the SEC too. And you're going to have like 20 to 24 teams. I would be fascinated to watch that. I don't know if that's what are in the plans though, for whoever is in charge of is trying to pull off right now. That's what I mean. Is like it's hard to speak in absolutes about anything because we don't really know what the end goal is of anybody. We know it's a separation of some sort, but we don't know exactly what type of separation. Is the goal to end up with the top 20 biggest brands all playing each other, or the top 30, or is it to have 60, or is it to have, we don't know that, and so it's hard to really peg that. But yeah, to me, the elite's the elite, and the elite's not just because you happen to be in a conference. But that's just me, though.
Well, it'll be interesting to hear what Tim Brando has to say about it. We've already kind of heard his thoughts about it. Here's Justin R. As far as the non-revenue sports, you could change the schedules, right? For example, Rutgers at USC, you fly all fall teams out there over 4 days, you play all sports.
Well, that's what they're going to do already. I'm just telling you that's not going to last very long because they're going to get sick of that. Mostly because it's tiring, and secondarily because they're not used to it and they never will be. And the SEC will also roll through seasons of where the longest, road trip in conferences, from Gainesville to Lexington. And they'll be like, well, we missed that. We missed that right there. And we're not making money on it anyway. We're starting to take money out of especially the Big Ten. You're going to start taking money out of the big money you're making from football that, is going to have to go to these other things more so because travel's going to be more expensive, and they'll just go back to where it matters. And also, nobody's going to care about Rutgers versus USC softball, but the USC softball fans might care about USC versus Cal in softball. Like that's a niche sport, so the niche will be that. But I was going to say, I really do believe this about Florida State and Clemson. The way that they're approaching this thing with the ACC is they're totally fine that Florida makes more money than them and that Bama makes more money than them. They want to make that same money. What bothers them more, because they feel they're on that level, is that Rutgers and Vanderbilt and all these other schools do, so they want to find a way out so they can get Rutgers money. Like, that bothers them a lot more than the fact that the SEC and Big Ten have made these deals. It bothers them that there's teams in there that are not them. That are well below them historically.
Based on being grandfathered in, or back in 1918, the conferences were put together.
In Rutgers' case, being in a market. They're very lucky to be in a market that was desirable.
Yeah, they're not, and again, Florida State and Clemson are never going to say that part out loud because it doesn't really help their case overall. But believe me, that chaps their ass way more than the fact that, they're worried that those schools that are good are going to pass them. That's certainly worry. I think that
separate.
Yeah, separate. Yeah, like they're not gonna be able to close the gap. But it upsets them that they're not allowed to close the gap because of a long TV deal and the fact that there's teams in there that have closed the gap that are not going to try to. Over time, with all this influx of money, is Northwestern really going to try to be that good of a team, or are they really going to put the resources there? Or
they're building a new stadium.
Well, yeah, but are they going to do it? Do they care as much at Northwestern
somebody asked this question
as
in the
somebody in
chat room.
Clemson? Yeah.
What about the teams that are struggling on the bottom part of each of those conferences? Does that bother them? I would think losing anything you do in life would bother you. But then when you get a check for that kind of money at the end of the year, then you're probably okay with it.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
They sign up every year to basically just get kicked around. And they have hopes that they're going to be better than that. They've made hires to be better than that and to improve, and they're not competing. But I think every year when the season starts up, we kind of know where you're going to find them at the end of it every single year. But that's okay because they're trying, and also they get a buttload of money to be Vanderbilt and to end up wherever they end up, and there's really no repercussions for being the bottom dweller every single year. But the checks are great, so yeah, they seem to be okay with it. I would think that would chap the backside of certain athletic directors and prize school presidents, and maybe that's just kind of like a timing thing where sometimes there's schools that care more about that at a certain period of time because of leadership versus others. But I think I hate to just always pick on Vanderbilt, but it's like one of these things is not like the other. And so, yeah, that's one that I think if you're Florida State or Oklahoma State or Oregon State, you look at them and you're like, damn, man, like how just lucky are they and to be where they're located and to have the history they had. But, man, we are trying way harder than they are with much less to be relevant and have been more relevant. But we just weren't lucky enough to be in Nashville, Tennessee, decades ago when a lot of this was being formed up. And so, yeah, I think that chaps people. But
they've been.
But to answer your question, I think that, yeah, if you're any of those teams that ends up at the bottom, like you don't want to be a perennial loser. But if you're Northwestern and it's allowing you to build a stadium on the lake because you're getting a cajillion dollars every year just by being a member of the Big Ten, then that's a nice trade-off for
Vanderbilt
losing.
was accepted into the SEC back in 1933. And this, by the way, that's a great school. They didn't offer me, and I couldn't have gone there. They have a great baseball tradition. They've got other traditions that are outside of this is all basically about football. They have been to 9 bowl games in over 100 years.
Yeah, but also
and have made $100 million more than anybody in the Big 12 who's won a title here recently, except for Texas and Oklahoma.
This is not blasting Vanderbilt. This is about reality of why there's frustration, whether it's FSU or Oklahoma State or Texas Tech or whoever else.
Well, and ask Oklahoma State what they were in 1933. Right? It's a different thing. So, like, ask Florida State was a girls' school.
They were Oklahoma A&M.
Yeah. Florida State was a girls' school. So it's so many things have
should
changed.
Vanderbilt take heat for that? We're not giving Vanderbilt heat. What we're trying to do is look at things.
I think the overall perspective is fair to go, well, why is this the way it is because of something that happened in 1933? Not Vanderbilt's fault.
Yeah, because if we're changing conferences and rivalries and all of that, why can't you also then change who was accepted when?
Well, and look, this is, and not to get like historical and boring, but this is kind of an American thing. Like we did something that was made sense at the time. I'll give you the example of tipping. So tipping doesn't really happen a lot around the world because they pay waiters and restaurant staffs like normal wages.
You know who knows that?
What?
Indomitian Sue brought this up on Twitter the other day.
So they do that. Why do we have tipping here? Well, because in the Depression, when people, business owners were kind of strapped and all these different things, they said, you can come here and work for tips. And it was mutually beneficial to, a time when restaurant owners and people who needed jobs, were just trying to make a deal and get by with whatever they could find. And you didn't have to pay them a salary. And then when we got out of the Great Depression, restaurant owners are like, well, I kind of like this deal here. And then it just got grandfathered in for so long that now that they're like the industry that can pay below a minimum wage and be like, well, I guess you suck at waiting tables.
Tipping means a lot to me because I once worked for them. So,
but you like pizzas, and again, but like it would be different if you just paid them a living wage.
No, now instead of them just saying like, hey, let's bump up the minimum wage, it's like let's add another delivery charge. Like now, I show up in person and I still get charged $4 just from walking from my car to go to your counter. Like it's crazy.
You use a debit card. I was paid mileage, salary. And I also could get tips back at Domino's back in the late 1970s. That was a pretty good threesome way of doing it. All right, so we're doing – Craig, go ahead and finish out more because, this is not focused on trying to beat up anybody. We're just looking at if the way things are moving forward, and that's kind of what Jamie Pollard was talking about with the audio we had 30 minutes ago. You look at some of the schools and where they are and why they're fine. Despite the fact they've had little success when it comes to football.
Well, they're fine right now. His whole point is that they won't necessarily be fine in the future. Mm-hmm. That just because you're getting those fat checks for being a bottom dweller right now, and look, I'll stop using Vandy as the example because they've had baseball success, but we know baseball doesn't matter in this equation. Like it doesn't, but they've had elsewhere athletic success, and so it's not just them. But I think it's one of those things where if you're talking about truly elite, premier, super league type deal, again, Premier League would be more vast. It would include more than just those two leagues, but a Champions Premier League a Champions League would include more than just those two leagues. Premier League, though, would be 20, 22, 24-ish teams, and I don't know if that's what's in the works or not, but if that's truly what people think it's going towards, then to Jamie Pollard's point of what we started off with is, just because you're in one of those leagues right now doesn't necessarily mean that 5 years from now or 10 years from now that you're automatically safe. So you might want to also be mindful of what's going on and not just assume that, hey, because I got in this league in 1927 that I'm going to be getting the $67 million check every year just because I was automatically in this league, because there's going to be more fat getting cut. It's not going to just stop at like 52 or something or whatever the total number would be, I think, without some more tweaks to it. I think it all depends on where you think it's actually going and heading, because different models would mean different things for different teams, like a Vanderbilt or any of the others that are similar to that. But yeah, in my mind, I don't consider that a super league if you're just putting two conferences together. I think that's something else. You can call it the League One or whatever, but that's not a super league when you're having some of the also-rans that are a part of it that are not necessarily contributing to the overall success over the years.
I wonder, it's probably more in my wheelhouse, when the AFL and the NFL merged. I don't think anybody in the AFL was left behind. I think everybody merged, and then what they did, as Jamie Pollard mentioned, the office of the commissioner became one. It went from the AFL, NFL to just the NFL.
Well, but the ABA, when they merged with the NBA team, they lost some teams.
They lost some teams. Yep, they did. Yep. Yeah, they absolutely did. I don't know how many, but I used to love the ABA. That was because Virginia Squires was my team when I was growing up, with Julius Erving as their star. All right, 4:35. Garrett, how you doing, sir?
I'm good.
He's good. LSU would be in a super league.
LSU would definitely be in a super league.
Yeah.
All right, let's have some fun with this. We've mentioned, there's a couple of the stories to get to, but we've mentioned some who are protected now who might not be. And we've mentioned Vanderbilt, and it's only because of an example. Who else among the SEC and the Big Ten? And remember now, numbers, eyeballs, what did you say, Craig? Market, etc.
Yeah.
Who would be among those two schools, the current, about to be SEC Big Ten? Who could be chopped, as they say on the Food Network?
Well, this won't be exact. I actually ran this down and did this all earlier, but I'm not saying this would be exactly what it would look like, but I do think there are teams that get more credit for who they are, who they've been than like, for example, like in Arkansas, I think there's a debate or an outright chop. But I know that there will be an argument of like, well, Arkansas did this and did that back in the day. But I'm talking about, if we're talking elite, right? Is that we're talking about a real super league, not a super league in name because it's just what you attach to two leagues that have like 40-something teams. But if we're talking like Premier League college football, Arkansas, you're gone, buddy. Kentucky, you're gone. Mississippi State, you're gone. South Carolina, you're gone. Vanderbilt, you're gone. And then I think there's debates that could be had on some of the others, like, for example, a Texas A&M, right? But I think that they would get in based on probably being in Texas or whatever. Paul, would you say Texas A&M's in a super league?
Oh, yeah.
Size and all that, they'd be in there. But I do think, like, Ole Miss, like, are they automatically in a super league? I tend to say yes right now, but I think you can make a case that they're not necessarily historically as great as some others who aren't in these two leagues necessarily.
They're historically in the very middle of the pack.
Exactly my point. Arkansas, same thing. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, what Kiffin's doing there at Ole Miss is pretty special.
Right.
Actually.
But I'm saying, like, if you're talking about the top, then I think that you could debate, like, on some schools like that. Whereas I think you outright say, all right, Mississippi State's gone, South Carolina's gone, Vanderbilt's gone, Kentucky's gone, and maybe you stop there and revisit Arkansas.
Kentucky fans are going to lose their shit over that comment.
Okay, I'm talking about football.
I know.
I'm talking about football.
I know.
But if we're talking basketball, then yeah, that's why I said earlier, it's a totally different conversation, and that's why it's not black and white, because some people are talking about it and they're including basketball in it. And then some people are talking about it and they're just talking football. So I'm just talking football.
Football only.
Yes. Big Ten.
Well,
Illinois,
I have
see ya.
a team that better start winning games.
Illinois, see ya. Indiana, bye. Maryland, peace out. Northwestern, hit the road. Purdue, see ya. Rutgers, gone. And then I think you have some debates on some of the others as well. But, yeah, I just eliminated like 10 teams from this thing. And if you want to debate them, that's fine. But I think those were the easiest to just say, like, yep, snip, snip. And then, yeah, if you want to get in, like Minnesota, historically, there's a big spiel that you could give. But is that Super League? Like, I don't know. I think that's debatable, kind of like in Arkansas or somebody like that. So, yeah, that's a fun exercise. And different people will have different end results, I'm sure, but that's just me just rolling off and trying to make cuts off the top of my head, and I think I just shaved about 9-10 teams off this thing.
Without even really thinking about it. And again, there's probably some arguments for some of those teams. I know one in Lincoln, Nebraska that better start winning.
I probably included some that some others would go like, see ya, like, get on out of here, Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I think would be fine.
No, Wisconsin's done enough.
Yeah, but there's probably others, like I'm sure somebody would fight for Illinois, but not think that maybe Michigan State should be in or something along those lines. So it depends on the eye of the beholder, but I think some of those are just obviously, if you were doing a true Premier League, that they would not be in initially, at least.
Kim Coulter, Super Chat, thank you. In anticipation of Brando on Super Conference idea and also possibilities. Yes, we'll bring that up to Tim, no question about it, and we'll get to that with him, and we'll have a lot of fun with that. Now, Conundrum, and I don't always agree on certain things, but he goes, the one thing about Nebraska, they have sucked in football. Believe me, I know. But they still, for whatever reason, and maybe it's because it's kind of like you grew up with what they were if you're 35 or 40 and even older, is they still generate great TV numbers.
Well, and that's also the thing is, like, I just cut all these teams for this little exercise, but I just cut out, like, several major markets.
Like Illinois, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, and that's the thing is, like, without knowing what the end goal is, do I think on football resume alone that all those teams that I just mentioned belong? No, obviously. But if you're talking about, hey, we're forming this league not based on the elite of the elite teams, but we're basing it on somewhat of successful history, but also on the fact they're in Chicago, then there's going to be teams that get in based on that, right? So like Rutgers would have no shot in a real Super League, but they would get in if your Super League was more based about TV markets and eyeballs.
Yeah.
So that's where it is as far as this exercise goes. So, yeah, depending on what angle you want to look at it, if you want to look at it like I want the biggest TV markets, then some of those teams I just mentioned are going to be in. But football-wise, should they be in over an Oklahoma State even or somebody like that? No, probably not. But that's also not what this is about. So
Kenny Maynard, any flagship will be good.
You think so?
Well, that would include some of the teams.
Yeah, Illinois, Indiana,
no question. Illinois, Purdue, Indiana, Kentucky, Rutgers, Vandy. I could keep going on, but down 6 in each conference, so this isn't the answer. Purdue, somebody mentioned, what was it? Purdue and Craig stated Purdue. There's some good feedback, and I don't know if I think we could be on the air for hours and not agree on 8. I think we could agree on 16 or maybe 5, but I don't think we could say these will be the 8 that get cut. And this is, again, all hypothetical, which sometimes we try to stay away from, but it's kind of fun to discuss.
Well, yeah, we could be doing all this, and then it turns out that the whole end goal is like having 70. And so none of this even matters, but it's fun to at least, throw around ideas and to get people's different perspectives. But I will tell you, if they were to do, and I'm not advocating for this by any means, but if they were doing a true Premier League and they said, here's the top 22 based on history, that would be freaking sick.
Based on history?
Based on history and success and every metric. Like, so it's Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas.
We've got to do that.
Oh, that's...
We got to do that.
That league would be...
All right, we know probably 10, 12, or 14 right off the top. So I'm going to throw them out. Based on history, does that then mean Nebraska's in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Based on, the overall
Miami.
package.
Yeah.
I think that, yes, but they'd be one of the last ones in.
Yeah, they'd be sitting there like...
they'd be like 22.
Right. Yeah. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech.
No.
Oh, dear
I'm talking about, look, this is not disrespectful. This is the elite of the elite. This isn't, we've had a couple All-Americans, we've won a couple. I'm talking about you've won national titles.
A&M would be out.
Yeah, A&M's not in it. Yeah,
A&M would be out.
No, they're not in it.
Arkansas.
No, hell no.
No.
They've won national titles.
Elite of the elite.
I know.
Here's the list. It's
all right, what about basketball schools like KU and Kentucky?
Well, see, that's a whole different conversation. That's what I'm talking about.
I know, that's what I'm that's
right,
one of the
so if
questions.
we keep doing that, then we're going to go down another side road. But
if you're talking about the 22 best football schools, 22 best football schools.
Yeah.
Now or historically?
Like kind of the Venn diagram.
Come on and please play along with this.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
we're getting there.
I'm trying to.
Post desegregation.
Late 70 and on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And there's not really like that much of a difference. It's the same teams for the most part. We're just not including Harvard and Yale. And I mean, there's obvious ones that you don't include.
Minnesota and A&M. And
I'll tell you the one that would be really interesting that I think
they can't play because you can't get anybody to the stadiums. They're all in camp.
I'll tell you the one that would be really interesting that would be borderline is Oregon. Now, I think they'd be in based on like where they are now, but historically, I don't think they're in, obviously.
Yeah.
Not above Miami.
Yeah, no.
But like if you were doing like the elite of the elite right now, I think you'd have to put Oregon in there. But that's where again it's not there's no exact formula. Yeah.
Kim Coulter, what about Oklahoma State? They won back-to-back when Moby Dick was a minnow in 1940.
That's going to be a no. But you knew that.
Wet blanket. I'm going to contact him for you, Kim. Yeah, and see that's kind of fun to look at it that way. Xavier Wolf. Spicy show today. Thank you, 365 Sports. Xavier, thank you. We got another one that was another super chat. Hold on just a second. From Matt Ritson. Well, we mentioned this, Matt, early in the show. UCLA must pay Cal $10 million for 6 consecutive years.
Yeah, I mean, that's great for Cal. I mean, that's not official, but the way it's being reported, it's one of those things where they've made it sound like it's totally official, but there's a vote, and I guess they just assume that the vote is going to go that direction as well, so I'll default to them.
I would say the vote's going to be really quick, given how long those things were. And
but it's already being reported like it's happened already, and it hasn't, so that indicates to me that there's an assumption that, it absolutely is happening. But.
Yeah, I think it's going to – I mean, I sat through listening to some of that. About 30 minutes of it when it was going on, and it was like a guy from the physics department going, so what now? Like, I mean, I'm on this board because I've been here for like 30 years, but, I feel like I'm a smart guy, but I'm kind of confused right now. Like, tell me, like, explain it to me like I would explain physics to you, kind of a thing. They're going to be like, all right, is everybody cool with this? Like, anybody has some objections? Sit down, Herb.
Right.
You don't? Here we go.
Yeah, I think that's great for Cal. That's great that they're going to get that extra money. See what that does for their football program or athletic departments, if anything. But that's a good. I mean, they got in the ACC, so I mean they were fortunate to find a landing spot when all hell broke loose. But, yeah, we'll see if that's, like, officially official, but it looks like it is going in that direction. So.
Paxton saying that Craig is talking about what I've been saying for years. It's going to be the elite of the elite. I don't think it is going to be.
I don't think they can pull it off.
We're looking at it. I just think there's too many – there's just – the politics might get involved there. And I just think there's too many people that were born in a league that might be difficult.
But then
they don't care about what other conferences might be left behind until all of a sudden they might be left behind, and it's all, wait a minute.
That's fine.
Here.
If it ends up being like 48 or 60 or whatever, that's fine, but don't call it a super league.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get into like the actual wording there. A super league does not include Rutgers and does not include Vanderbilt and North. Like, we can go over the teams. A super league, to me, in my eyes, would be the elite of the elite, like you're talking about, Paxton, and it would be all the top brands. I mean, like 20, 22 at most, and it would be just a murderer's row, and it would be freaking insane. But yeah, it's probably the most unlikely outcome of any because of politics and because of affiliations and things like that. It would probably be the most unlikely route. But if we had to say, like, hey, it's all going to splinter and here are options, then give me that one where they're all, like, together and then everybody else can and have their league, but not advocating. But if we're having to separate things, then if I'm going to have a super league, I want it to be a real dadgum super league. Like, give me the real deal, and that would mean some chopping of some schools on both leagues.
I don't want, exactly. If you're going to do this if you're just going to cut off and make it the elite of the elite, I don't want because some guy was drinking mint juleps in 1947.
Yes.
And so it's like, oh, well.
So that eliminates Army, Minnesota, some of the schools that won back in the day.
I don't want anybody in the conference who got in there because they knew that the other school's president had a mistress. Like, that's what that's what I don't want. Like, there's that stuff that went on, And like, oh, well, of course
then we just eliminated Congress.
We don't have to. Yeah, exactly. We don't have to be in the SEC. But then, of course, we can find out about that daughter you have in Cincinnati.
Yeah. By the way, Moby Dick is a fictional white sperm whale and the primary antagonist in Herman Melville's 1851 novel.
Is there anyone here who did not know that?
Yeah. What are we?
Call me Ishmael. It's the first line of the book.
Thank you. I remember reading that book 30 years ago. Yep. I remember Moby Dick.
I like learning things. First race
Love
since
Wikipedia.
Moby Dick was a minnow. I swear to God, that's in Google.
Yeah.
All right.
So where did that come from?
From Kim
Kim
Coulter.
Coulter said Moby Dick, but
He
did
goes
you
Oklahoma State because back when they won back-to-back in 1940.
Did you not know who Moby Dick was until just now?
I didn't know he was a white sperm whale.
Yeah, he was a white whale. Yeah,
a
white whale.
Can we say that now? I mean, is that allowed?
It's a sperm whale.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the line of the day with Bobby B and Moby Dick was a minnow. All right.
Captain Ahab. No, that was Journey to the Center of the Earth. Who was it? Call me Ishmael.
UCLA.
Yeah. Well, we got a break because we got
no UCLA.
No, they're not in.
No, gosh, no.
No.
I'm going to try to come up.
I made some UCLA fans mad one time with a comment I made on the show, and like somebody clipped it, and like the message board came for me.
Spencer Danielson.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I mean, I'm just said that you guys haven't won a lot of conference titles, and like, well, regularly since 1998 we've come in third or fourth, and I'm like, that's not like
cool.
That's enough to get you fired.
Sometimes you get a ribbon for that.
Like I get that you're in Southern California and like you guys kind of invented this participation trophy deal. So,
are you wanting to end up back on their message boards, Paul? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean it is like look, and I even told them like the minute that you quit accepting the fact that you got third and that was a good year is the minute you're going to be way better in football.
Could we actually limit it to 22 teams?
Well, that's the fun exercise. But then
Penn
you went off
State,
on your Moby
yes.
Dick exercise.
All right, how about Pittsburgh?
No.
They won it post-segregation.
Look, again, are you trying to be funny here?
No.
Okay, because
I'm
honestly, like I don't know how you think that they would be in the elite of the elite league.
Well,
I really don't. It's not a matter of you've won a national championship. It's a matter of the total package, and in no way are they.
I think winning them over different decades, which would make
being very highly successful without a national title.
Guys, there's an interesting group that would be on the fringe of this. If you were to put a cap on it, like 20 through like 28 would be really interesting because I think you'd have some teams that you're like, damn, that's really difficult. But this league would be, just for your idea, it would be Michigan, it would be Bama, it'd be Ohio State and Notre Dame and Texas and Oklahoma and Penn State and USC and LSU and Tennessee
11.
And those types of schools.
Yeah.
And then it would be interesting of like, who's on the fringe of that? The Miamis, the Clemsons, who you would assume. The Washingtons. Oregon. I mean, and Oregon's the one that doesn't have the natty as like the others do
Oregon's
necessarily.
debit card does not have a national title.
But that's what I said a few minutes ago, that they would be in under my interpretation of the elite in college football right this moment.
If anybody said I want to enter, but I have a debit card, you're out.
I would say that you've got like the ones that like Pittsburgh had their little moment, Colorado had their little moment, but they're not in because that was a moment, as opposed to a school like Nebraska that would be in because they had moments throughout decades.
Yeah,
Miami had moments throughout decades.
They're about to have moments throughout decades. It's not very good either.
FSU, Tennessee, and those teams get in because they have moments throughout decades. Tennessee gets in. Tennessee gets in.
They're in.
Yeah. Okay. Tennessee gets in. They're the one that's probably the lowest amount of national titles that makes it in, but
North Carolina.
Well, no, Oregon would be the lowest amount of national titles that would probably get in.
North Carolina.
No, absolutely not. Not in football.
It's just kind of fun, just kind of like just spitting it out there like that.
You can say when the last time you won the national title was, if Michael Jackson was still the king of pop and not a pedophile, then you don't get to be in.
Clemson, by the way, won
that's
twice.
That's my dividing line.
Clemson's had 2 under Dabo, and they also won in '81 with Danny Ford. That was one conundrum was asking about that.
Yeah, they'd be in based on the recent titles. But I think they'd be at the lower end of it. Mm-hmm. I think they'd be like one of those last select schools that you're putting in there. And I think A&M based on credentials, shouldn't be in it. If you're talking a real super league, like they shouldn't be in it. But if you're going off of like, well, they've got 100,000 people every Saturday, and they're in the state of Texas, and they're, then they'd be in based on that. But again, I'm talking about it's the real deal Premier League. Then no, they're not in that.
The Alphas are the Alphas. Utah.
No.
All right, again, just having fun with it. Everyone can have your own list on
most of the Big 12 right now as it stands would be screwed.
The entire Big 12 would be out. Big 12, yeah. The entire Big 12 would be out.
Yeah. No, they would be. Yeah, they would be. All right, when we come back, Fox Sports' Tim Brando will join us a little bit after 5. Garrett, let's put up the one list that we'll do, because when Tim gets on, it's going to be about a half hour with him. And this is some of what we were just talking about, although we were mainly looking at national titles. The most Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame members from these schools. Notre Dame and USC at the top, not a surprise. Michigan, Ohio State, Pittsburgh, boys.
No.
University of Miami, Alabama. Oh, my goodness, Syracuse. Jim Brown and company, Ernie Davis.
Marvin Harrison Jr. would have been the last.
I don't think
or Marvin
Floyd
Harrison
Little.
Sr. would have been the last.
I'm really excited to see what's going to happen up at Syracuse this year. I think with the coaching change, Fran Brown, he's got his own style, his own swagger, and just his own history in that area, that he knows the lay of the land, and he's an up-and-coming coach. Just as at Georgia these last couple years, and has been an up-and-comer for a while. We know Matt Rule pinned him as a future head coach. I think I haven't really cared that much about Syracuse as of late, even though Dino Babers had some moments here and there. But you got quarterback from Ohio State. His name is escaping me. Fellas, Ohio State quarterback is at Syracuse now.
Kyle McCord.
Kyle McCord, yeah. I was thinking Hamilton for some reason.
I knew the answer immediately, but I wanted you guys to twist in the wind.
Yeah,
sure.
Kyle McCord and Fran Brown, I think that's going to be really fun to see that. So just going on my little Syracuse tangent there, while you talk about Hall of Famers, I do think that's a program that's interesting heading into 2024.
G-Max said, guys, don't forget Cincinnati, 3 Hall of Famers in the next 15 years with the Kelseys and also Sauce Gardner.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Now, think about the right-hand side of this. Think about this whole thing.
God willing, Sauce stays healthy, because he definitely has that trajectory, but the Kelseys for sure,
Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Minnesota, Oregon, Illinois, UCLA, and some of them would not make the top 22.
How many of the Minnesota guys played when there were face masks?
Right, but and total package, you're being disingenuous because they have Hall of Famers in the pro football ranks that they're going to make the Super League. No, that's not how it works. So, sorry.
I'm sure that's something that the Minnesota delegate will say.
Right.
And then the delegate from Tallahassee right here will be like, all right.
Well, that's one of those slides that would be like when you're very selectively trying to show why you belong in. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh, yeah, Pro Football Hall of Famers. And, we've got
how many of them use the whites-only bathroom? They're out.
Yeah.
Mick Tingelhoff went to Nebraska. He's in. All right, okay. When we come back, Fox Sports, this will be fun. Tim Brando, I don't even know where we are on this, just around the corner, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. There's some new incentives for the month of May, and because of that, of course, Memorial Day sales event. The unforgettable with 2024 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe. Elevate your adventures with exceptional fuel efficiency and iconic Jeep performance. Lease yours today for under $750 a month for 39 months, only $3,500 out of pocket. Don't miss the limited time offer at Allen Samuels in Waco. Subject, of course, to credit approval based on 10,000 miles per year. Celebrate Memorial Day also with this one, the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. It's beautiful 4xe. Experience the perfect blend of luxury, capability, efficiency, a plug-in hybrid. Leased now for under $750 a month, 39 months, $3,500 out of pocket. Again, also credit approvals needed based on 10,000 miles per year. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, General Manager, CEO Ted Teague, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
TexasBeefHouse.com, marketing director, had an incredible online auction, live auction, of course, in the month of April. There'll be another one just around the corner. But May, people start to get out on the grills. The weather's cleared up. You got a special throughout and some ideas for the month of May.
So May, we consider May, June, and July as grilling month. We've got our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular Wagyu hamburger patties, our garlic links. Two things that people aren't usually familiar with are our flap steak and flank steak. Those are a large piece of meat that you can cut up and eat with a fajita, or a lot of people will just cut it up and eat like a normal steak. This is our favorite time of the year because it's the perfect weather to get outside and get that grill going.
In the end, did you guys have another great auction? Did it all go well?
We had another fun auction. We had Wagyu brisket at this auction. It was phenomenal. We had so many customers that were so excited. They've given us their feedback on Facebook. We've got a lot of exciting things coming with a new platform that we've got going called Bid on Beef that we'll be releasing in the next couple of months. We're really excited about what the future holds for us.
TexasBeefHouse.com. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, premium grade East Texas beef from their pasture to your plate. They'll deliver it to you locally. They bring it directly to your door. Farm-raised Wagyu beef. May grilling month, May, June, and July, and there's not a better place to find what you want to put on the grill, whether it's hamburgers, flank, or flap steak. Samantha, there's always that code to get a discount.
Yes, absolutely. Use the code SICK'EM10, SICK'EM10, and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sick'em 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
.365 Sports, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, Garrett Ross running the mothership. Don't forget 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the local CW. And then also we'll be back on Monday every weekday, 3 until 6. Paul with triple option from 1 until 2, Monday through Thursday. Let's see. There was one. Texas Tech hired the head basketball coach at Wyoming to join Grant McCaslin's staff. Alex Taylor with that particular story. So they take a head coach from Wyoming to become a part of Grant McCaslin's staff, Jeff Linder, and now Wyoming is looking for a new head coach in basketball.
Yeah, kind of a rough time of year to do it, when the transfer portal's, closed and you're waiting on the NBA draft and all these other things. But you're seeing this in football a lot. I'm not surprised you're going to see it in basketball as well. This is a jump up, and especially like the Big 12 being the league it is in basketball, that is, you're going to see it like you did in not only the SEC, but the SEC and a big, like Chip Kelly going to Ohio State, the same thing. Like, if you're a basketball coach, why would you mess around and not be in the Big 12 if you could?
Yep.
It's the league.
And then especially when you see what Scott Drew's staff has done, because they have head coaching jobs elsewhere around the country. We're now joined by Fox Sports' Tim Brando, 365 Sports, as we close out the week. Tim, thank you very much for your time. We have sat here, and hope you've been doing well. We've sat here and tried to talk about what would a Super League look like if, let's say, the number was only 22, and what would the requirements need to be? How much fun would you have with that?
Say that one more time now. If it were just down to what?
If 22, and you had to be the alphas among the Paul. What, you had to win a national title after segregation?
Yeah, after desegregation, and you can't. You have to win a conference title or multiple ones.
No, not a conference title.
Yeah, but like national titles, like. We try to boil it down to the 22 of 22 that could muscle everyone out and say, this is our premier super extra plus league.
You guys have had way too much idle time of late. I recommend a round of golf.
Well,
I really do.
I did too.
It's been raining like a son of a gun here.
I understand. Well, it was raining here last night too, so I get it.
All right, so there's a couple.
You got me with that one. You surprised me with that question.
Well, this is what would be interesting. Teams like Oregon, UCLA, and there's a few others would miss the cut because you would have to have something like more than a national title or two since, let's say, 1970. So that it was just kind of we're just rambling through it and wanted to get your feedback.
I understand. Hey, I know what time of year it is. Okay, I did have a daily show for a number of years, so I get it. It's. I think that's the greatest fear that all of the college football fans have is that something like that. Okay. Which is the doomsayer's dream, I guess, because everyone this time of year wants to gnash teeth and bitch and moan and groan and find what's wrong as opposed to what's right with anything, including college football. And God knows there's a lot wrong with it right now in the day-to-day that we've been talking about ad nauseum for the last few years, really since COVID. It's been one thing after the other. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I do think there are people out there are fans out there, particularly of schools that would be, quote, elite statured schools, which would make up that 22 that you're talking about, that would be just fine with that because they live in a vacuum. There are a lot of fans, not all, but a lot of fans in the SEC that believe nothing on the air anywhere is worth watching other than their team's games. Okay. I mean, literally, I can go to my airport in my hometown. Okay. Run into people that I went to school with, and we're about to have a 50-year high school reunion next weekend. I could run into people that have known me that long. All right. And they might say to me at the airport, "Did you retire?" They really, honest, that's true. It's happened. Okay. They think when I left CBS, I was done. Okay. I'm sure they were over a few drinks. A few of them might have been saying, "Guy, did you hear about Tim? That's really a shame." And that, almost like I'd passed away or something. But that's how provincial some fans are. Okay. And I think it's noteworthy in the SEC, but it's also, you can find that to be true also in the Big Ten, maybe not as passionately, but it still exists. People watch their teams at the times that they're accustomed to watching them, and there are a few fans in the Big 12. All it's been a regional sport for a long, long time, fellas. It has. Now, I think that the moves towards making it more national are in fact happening now, even though it appears that line between the haves and the have-nots is so much broader. Okay, than it used to be. The notion that it's the big two and then everybody, that's garbage. I know that the money is there and the history and the tradition is there more so in the Big Ten and the SEC than it is in the Big 12 and other conferences. But the truth is, there's more than enough great college football to go around, regardless of how much money intake there is for said school. Okay, and let's not forget there's a lot of dead weight even in those leagues. Okay, bottom feeders that are not on the same level with probably 60% of the Big 12 and 75% of the SEC and Big 10. I mean, the reality is they just don't belong, but they get the money because they do. And that's the part that I think is difficult for conference commissioners outside of the Big 10 and the SEC to come to terms with, is that they know that regardless, it really sucks in their minds that Vanderbilt has a bigger budget than they do. Okay. Or that, let me find that team in the Big 10. I guess historically we might say Northwestern, but not so much after last year. But you find that really bad team in the Big 10 traditionally, and to say that they've got more to work with, okay, than you do. But what they have to work with doesn't always transcend into how much is being put back in. I guess you saw what the University of what the California system is trying to do to UCLA. Okay, they may be operating with less money than ever just for having made the move to the Big 10 because of what the California system is at least attempting to do. I don't know if that's going to stand up in court or not. I know this, it probably played a role in Chip Kelly exiting stage left and deciding to call plays for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But that to me, that question is the absolute worst possible scenario for the future of college football. We don't need some 22-team elitist field. What are we going to say, that the rest of college football is like a basket full of deplorables? Is that next? Is that the next thing that's going to be said? Because that's the way it comes off.
Yeah, Tim, I think when there's a lot of the sky is falling, people forget TV networks still need inventory, and they can't get that with just 20 teams. But also some context on the whole conversation we were having was Iowa State AD Jamie Pollard was talking to a group, and he was basically saying, like, even those that are in those leagues right now, they're not necessarily guaranteed anything in the future. So why you might be somebody that's in the SEC or Big 10 kind of, laughing or whatever at the Big 12 or the ACC or what they're dealing with, is like, hey, it could be you next. I think that was the message that started the conversation, was like, hey, it's not just settled in, permanently for you guys either.
No, I get you. And by the way, did you happen to notice what the two schools that were remaining in the Pac-12 did with their TV deal?
Yes.
To get the 3 games on Fox?
Yes.
To make sure that the Apple Cup is, I guess we could call it the Apple Cup conference, right? I mean, that's basically what we're looking at. And those 3 games that Fox will carry will be important games on the calendar for Fox to have. And I guess the rest of that deal may be a CW deal. At least that's what I'm hearing. And frankly, when I hear some barking from some of their fan base, and look, they had great years last year, particularly Oregon State had a great year last year. I mean, you think about how close they came to beating Oregon on a bad weather night in Corvallis, and I went in there I think I had Oregon State twice. I had Oregon 3 times last year, and they were very much in it. They were a top 15 team much of the year, and they lose their coach. They lose their AD. They lost everything. The Washington State AD, one of the best in the business, he leaves to go where? To Washington, of all places. But yet these 2 schools are going to make in excess of $50 million for the next 2 years because of the way, from a legal standpoint, they handled being left in the Pac-12. They managed to take care of themselves monetarily for the next 2 years until they can get a new address, and they're going to be fine. And to your point, those games that Oregon State and Washington State play in the non-conference are largely going to be, I think, games that would have old Pac-12 teams on it, but for the short and for the long term. And so having some rights to those games involving Wazoo and Oregon State is very important to any network. So I was really happy to see Fox, come up with whatever they needed to come up with to get those 3 games.
Tim, the Group of 5 had some chatter this week, and they already have a sponsor, so they're going to do it, of their own ranking system. And then this has sparked more talk about a Group of 5 only playoff. Right. Do you think this is something they they need to be ready for or do just to make sure that they get more money and to try to close the gap overall?
Well, I don't know how much money that's going to get them on the market in the marketplace right now. But I will tell you this. I do believe that from a competition standpoint, it's a great thing to have. I think the fans of those schools and that region of the country, whatever it is, the Sun Belt, I mean, that league is loaded. I mean, the Sun Belt is SEC light in terms of its personnel and its talent. It's been that way really for a number of years. Mike Oresco got onto something really big with his P6 routine with the American Conference. And yeah, that was the league that did provide, that first team to crack the code and make it to the college football playoff 14 deal. But the losses they suffered to the expansion of the Big 12 and other conferences to go along with who they had to replace those teams with, all right, put them in a position where they were not as good on the field a year ago as the Sun Belt was. And I don't see any backup. I think the Sun Belt's going to continue to do very, very well. And so if you're that league and you're what's left, and the Mountain West in my mind is the real that's the one that I think is the trump card player among the so-called what's left of conferences. We used to call them Group of Five. Now we'll just say after the Big Four, it's what's left. If I were them, if I were the Mountain West, I would find a way to hitch my wagon to that Pac-12 leftover circumstances that those two schools find themselves in. The brand of the Pac-12 is still, I think, a larger brand than the Mountain West. And I think that those teams that are in that league make perfect geographical sense. I think the Mountain West is probably the next best league after the Sun Belt in the Group of Five. A lot of good teams in that league that have flourished and have done well in recent years. Look, I went to Wyoming last year for a game, as you know. That's where my mentor Kurt Gowdy went to school, and it was one of my most memorable weekends. I would love to see that conference get connected in some way with Wazoo and Oregon State and have a Pac-12 use that brand to build back up to compete. But if you're only going to get one spot, and even if you win and move on all the way to the championship, you're not going to make the same kind of money as the SEC and the Big Ten are going to make. I mean, the gauntlet's down there. Okay, you've got to answer that gauntlet. And going about your business and saying we're going to have our champion too, I think is a good way to start. And one thing about our business, I don't know what the marketplace would pay for that and whether they'd have to go streaming as well as linear to get a good TV deal. But yeah, networks need inventory. And whenever a game's being played and there's a betting line on that game, people are going to be coming after it. And how much they're willing to pay, we'll see. We'll see what the market will bear. But I think that we're going to see more change between now and the start of the season in 2 years than we've ever seen in college football. And we've already seen a lot. I mean, we've already seen a lot, and we're going to see a lot more just in the next 24 months.
Tim, for those who have been protected in either one of those larger conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, do they ever need to look behind them and have their back? Because they've been protected. The SEC has been incredible about the weakest link. They're as strong as their weakest link. We know Vanderbilt, South Carolina, whoever else. Do those schools, any of them, ever need to make sure they don't look too far ahead?
Well, I mean, no, I don't think so. I think they're as solvent as they've ever been and will continue to be. And I think similarly, the Big Ten is in a similar situation. And honestly, supply and demand being what it is, as long as the conference itself is saying, Vanderbilt, we don't care what you do with your money. Okay. How much of that money that they make, that huge profit, those checks for 55 and 60 million annually that are about to become 72 to 80 million annually when these new TV deals click in a couple of years. If no one's going to monitor that and say to them, hey, if you're not investing back in your football program, I don't know that we need you in the league. And no one's doing that. Okay. Now, whether that's because of the quote academic standing or what, I don't know. But until somebody implies that, and I've not seen that, and I doubt that we will. No, I think they're in great shape. I really do. I think the important factor for the Big 12 and the ACC, or what's left of the ACC, and where that's going to be, I mentioned the Mountain West and the Pac-12. I think the other real major factor is, how's this fit with Stanford and Cal going to really go with the Atlantic Coast Conference? Okay, is that going to be as out of whack perhaps as we think it might be? Because if it is, then I think there's a very good chance that we could see a reconfiguration of some kind with what's left of the ACC if Virginia and North Carolina go Big Ten, and if Florida State and Clemson go SEC. Those are things that are all going to be up for grabs, I think, in that 2-year period that we're talking about here, when these new TV deals click in, and when the college football playoff contract that's brand new, and at that point we're either going to 14 or going to 16. I still think it's 16, but the wheels are turning for all of that now, and most fans are just beginning to wrap their heads around the notion that we're going to have 12 teams this year. A lot of fans think we got new TV deals right now. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is an old TV deal that ESPN decided to jumpstart by 2 years because the CFP wanted to do that. The money remains the same for these 2 years, but their inventory is greater. And they decided to plunk down $55 million per game for what is like a $1.2 billion deal. I got to believe they've got to be up for sale. Those rumors about Disney being purchased have got, in my mind, this is just my opinion. You're not going to make money on that. You're going to lose money because NFL games, all right, NFL games are being purchased by NBC and other networks for the 30 to 35 million just around the holiday season. Okay, 55 million for a game involving number 7 versus number 12, and 7 and 10 and 6 versus 11 and 5 versus 12. That's way overpriced, and will be a loss. I mean, that'll be a losing proposition financially for them unless they can find somebody, whether it's a streaming service like Amazon or Apple or whoever, to pony up some money. And I don't think they're going to pony up 55 million. They might get half that, but you're talking about trying to put games up against NFL regular season and NFL playoff games in that time in December. So, they've rushed into this to get the 12 teams now. I think it's great that they've done it. I'm happy for them. But just as an observer, not as somebody that works in this business, okay, because I don't think any network or even any streamer is willing to pay $55 million per game for anything. Okay, it's the market price and the economy being what it is. I just don't see it. So it'll be interesting to see what the worldwide leader decides to do, or if the worldwide leader is run by the same organization, because they really put a lot into this. And what of the NCAA, by the way, with the lawsuits that have been brought against them and the monies that they could possibly lose, and what will the courts say about the legality or potential legal issues that the NCAA currently has with its current contract in basketball? I mean, I think you've seen what happened with Turner with the NBA. That deal's up in 2032, and 80% of the freight on the NCAA basketball tournament is paid by Turner, not CBS. A lot is changing out there, fellas. A lot is changing in the media world right now with sports.
Tim, they are trying to get the House settlement done in less than 40 days, apparently, which is glorious for billable hours, but it's got to be really bad if you're an NCAA executive trying to figure out how this structure is, or settlement is going to be structured. How do you think that settlement will immediately be responded to by new structures for the NCAA?
I honestly, I cannot believe under any circumstances that college football, okay, what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes here, that it can have any part of the NCAA once we get to the 26-27 season. I just don't see it. And I think, as I mentioned before, the legalities, given what they're on the hook to have to pay, all right, because of the way some of these decisions have come down and what they're on the hook to come up with, without the NCAA men's basketball tournament revenue and now women's tournament revenue, even though it's about 20% of what the men's is worth, we now know that it's growing, and that's why they got that new TV deal done with ESPN a little over a year ago. But that's still going to fall way short of what they might have to pay out on legal fees. So the NCAA as a functioning body is in peril, and any of its jurisdiction, what little of it was left in college football, is going to be gone. I mean, gone completely, in my mind, in 24 months.
In 24 months?
Yeah, I think after this contract is over and they get new CFP is put together, they are not going to get the help from Congress that Charlie Baker suggested is the answer. That's not going to happen. Okay. Do I need to tell you? Does anybody need to? Charlie Baker, I know he was a very respectable and fruitful Republican governor in a blue state. All right. But he's trying to sell college football leaders on these goods about Congress coming together to put together some things that will help, the future of college football and set boundaries and guardrails up for NIL and the portal. There's no way. There's no way you can get the right and the left to come together on something like that. It is not going to happen. We are going to go into a collective bargaining agreement. The wheels are already turning. And as I said before on this show, I think that the two leaders, both Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, well aware of this. And I think the rest of college football at the Division I level is too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen everyone say, okay, yep, that's fine. You get more money than we do. We're fine with that. I mean, you didn't hear any barking publicly from really anybody because they know what Sankey and Petitti know, and that is that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be the difference makers in moving away from the NCAA. And that's got to happen, I think, for college football to be able to sustain itself, for the opportunity of having the portal and NIL work in concert with one another so that we don't have this wild, wild west, this absolute free agency and the purchasing of players that's going on. If you saw what Brian Kelly said in his interview the other day, young man Jacques Doucet from WAFB, a station that I worked for before I went to ESPN back in 1985, I was really proud of Jacques for getting that interview. And when he said, look, we're offering NIL, we got a nice war chest, but we are not going to buy players. We're not going to buy them the way they are currently being bought, even if we do have a dire need in the defensive line. And they do. But I think coaches, the really sophisticated ones, the guys that get it, and Brian does, they know that the future for college football is going to be in collective bargaining. It's not going to be with congressional help and the nationalizing of NIL and the portal. That tube came out of the toothpaste. The toothpaste got out of the tube on that one a long time ago, and the NCAA will never be able to retrieve it. We know legally they just have no juice whatsoever.
Do you feel like most college football coaches feel the same way as Brian Kelly, or a majority of them, or a lot of them?
I'd say the majority of them. Particularly those that have been around for a long time and have acquitted themselves nicely through those years. I wouldn't say legendary coaches, but let's just say highly successful coaches that have been in the business a long time and are really trying desperately to stay in the game because they have that much belief in what they do, and they're not necessarily interested in pro jobs. The ones that feel like, okay, I can't handle this, they're gone now. The ones that are still in, and Brian is probably the most noteworthy of that group. Okay, in football, he would be, I think, I would use Tom Izzo in basketball and Rick Pitino in basketball as guys that are willing to adjust and adapt because they love college basketball so much that they're willing to change to stay because they love doing what they do. They're still competing at the highest level. But if guys like Jay Wright and, of course, a few years older than him would be Kay and Roy, they got out. They didn't want any part of it. In college football, when you see a guy throw his hands up and get out, then you know that he knew what was coming. He doesn't want to deal with it. Brian wants to deal with it. You know, he still has personal goals. He wants to win a national championship. But even he's saying, you know, I am not going to do what some of these guys are doing. And, you know, some coaches are now beginning to call other coaches out. We've seen some of that. You know, Lane Kiffin has been quick to point some of that out. And no one's been more active in the portal, certainly in the SEC, than Lane has been. And he's beginning to call some people out too. And I think that's a good thing. But we're headed towards collective bargaining. And those two words, for whatever reason, upset the hell out of a lot of people, and I don't know why. To me, it's just good business.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's capitalism at work. But we have to have some. You can't have free agency through the portal and NIL going on simultaneously. And you know, some schools have even said, what was it? Boise State this week said, you know what? We're in the Mountain West. Here's what we're going to do. We're just not going to pay our freshmen. You got to earn it. After 1 year, we'll have a nice war chest here you can dip into. And that may force a lot of limitations on what the Broncos can do in the short term. But they've just decided this is what we can do and this is what we can't. Now, they're not in the same financial situation that the big schools are. But when a coach like Kelly, who does have the means to compete, says what he says, and he's looked around. Look, he's working for the guy, Scott Woodward. He's working for the AD that brought Jimbo Fisher to Florida State. Okay, and Scott got out, went to LSU. So you know they're willing to put together a great war chest. Hell, they got somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million just for baseball. Okay, so in football they've got plenty to work with, but there are still ways to do it. And when a guy like Ross Bjork, by example, leaves Texas A&M and leaves to go where? To Ohio State. What does that tell you about how serious the Buckeyes are? Okay, they tell those oil barons they don't have enough. We got more in Columbus, Ohio. So it's game on, fellas. You know, and then Trev Alberts leaves Nebraska. You know, the prodigal son leaves Lincoln, Nebraska, to go to A&M. I mean, it's a different world. It's a different time. But I still believe, and I'll say it again, once we get close to toe meeting leather, fans it'll be cease and desist. It'll be time to root on our teams, talk smack, and watch more college football than they ever have, which is what they're doing.
Tim,
college football's never done any better than it's doing right now from a viewing standpoint and from a financial standpoint.
Tim, we actually had Jeramiah Dickey from Boise State, the AD, on at the beginning of the show today, and he talked to.
Oh, did you?
He addressed that. I want to go back to Congress for a second. I think, and I've said this for a long time, because again, they just passed their 41st bill yesterday, and I was reading that about RFK Stadium. So it's not like they're churning them out like they did in the past. And so that's not a lot. If people want to know, usually you have like 41 bills in a week. They would do that, but now. I think where Congress sits with so much disagreement and division, and they're not good at things even when they're good at things. I mean, they're Congress. They're there. Yeah. And I think what they've kind of sent the message is, look, you guys get this figured out, and then come back to us with what the new structure is, and then we will help you protect the things that will keep everybody from getting sued all the time. Like we'll set guardrails around your new thing, but we're not going to invent the new thing for you.
Yeah, but the problem there is, again, where's the justification for the NCAA? I mean, what role are they playing? Yeah. I mean, right now, all the NCAA ever does, and you've seen it with what the decisions they've made on when to open the portal and when not to open the portal, They're doing everything in their power to undermine what is in the best interests of both college football and now even college basketball. I mean, it's insane, what they're doing. It's almost like they want out. It's like we're driving this baby into a ditch almost as big as the one Kliavkoff created for himself in the Pac-12. It really is. If you didn't know any better, you would think the NCAA just wanted to, this building could be worth a lot here in Indianapolis. It really looks that way. If you're not from here and you don't know the history of intercollegiate athletics in this country, I'm amazed at how they continue to look at the two major cash cows of the institutions that are part of the NCAA, and they continue to mismanagement the mismanagement in such a manner. It's mind blowing, and frankly, the problem here is that some of these commissioners are running into roadblocks dealing with presidents who are still, sold on this neo-colonial approach to the way governance should take place in intercollegiate athletics. This Walter Byers, days gone by mentality that college presidents still deem necessary, and I called them Neanderthals once on CBS and got in a little bit of trouble. But if they were Neanderthals in the early 2000s, it's like Cro-Magnon Neanderthals. What else can I do? It's horrible what they've done when they open the portal at the most inconvenient time for the good of the game. I mean, think about that. And they're even doing it to basketball. And without the men's basketball tournament, they couldn't pay their light bill in Indianapolis.
Tim, I always try to go to a broadcasting question, and I saw what you had, a picture of Pat Summerall celebrating his birthday in heaven. And it made me wonder, in this day and age with broadcasters, it's almost as if some are broadcasting because they want to have their audio put up on social media because they lose their mind. And there are moments when you have to lose your mind, but he was less is more. Ray Scott, Pat Summerall. Is that still what we have enough of in broadcasting, in your opinion?
No, we don't have enough of that now. We don't, unfortunately. But there's a term, and I used it when I went back and forth with somebody that actually asked a really good question after I put that out on X, and most of today's generation of sports fans does not know that Pat Summerall began as an analyst. He was a kicker / receiver, played at Arkansas, then went to the Giants, made a big name for himself in the NFL. And because he was in New York, he was in a position to, get a lot of attention from some people in the network arena because that's where they're housed, is in New York. He and Frank Gifford were able to do that as players. They were contemporaries, and they both went to CBS, and they both flourished. But it was Ray Scott who did those games with him, the Ice Bowl in '67, where he and Jack Buck actually did 1/2 apiece. And Pat was part of the broadcast, as was Frank Gifford. And those guys learned, but particularly Pat learned because he worked with Ray Scott so much. And Ray was the first guy from his generation to understand that television was not radio and that fans could see it. They didn't need to know what formation the team was in. They didn't need to know that Boyd Dowler was to the left and Carroll Dale was to the right. They could just see the play unfold, and then Ray could say, star, Dowler, touchdown, Green Bay. Okay. And so Pat learned from that. He was a human sponge, and it probably wouldn't have worked, for Pat as a play-by-player, but he was blessed to have two outstanding analysts with him, Tom Brookie, who was, as everyone knows, his running mate in the 70s, mid-70s, and into the early 80s, and they were best of friends, so much so that it was Brookshire that led the intervention of Pat to help save him from alcoholism. And then it was John Madden that came after that. And at the time Madden came up, the technology in our business was getting so much better. We had this thing called a telestrator, which could eat up a lot of time and allow Madden's sort of bombastic style to be on full display, with a telestrator drawing all over the screen. And Pat, on occasion, would get a chuckle out of it. And he didn't really have to converse as much with him as he did with Brookie. And that less is more style really worked with him. A lot of younger broadcasters picked up on it, too. It's funny. Jack Buck, who was a tremendous play-by-player as well, Joe's dad, I would submit Joe is a lot more like Ray Scott and Summerall than he was his own dad. His dad really injected a lot of his personality. Not that Joe doesn't, but Joe was in the strictest sense a minimalist too. And it helped him, in making that transition and working with analysts that were charismatic and really could fill that time. So you didn't have as much dialogue as, say, maybe you did in the 70s because you didn't have as much technology to work with. But now the analyst became really the star. And the less the play-by-play guy said or did, the more the analyst, the more he shined. And that's what the executives wanted. Not everybody is blessed to have, a guy like Madden or a guy like Brookshire. I've been fortunate that I've had Spencer Tillman with me it'll be 26 years this coming fall. But I think anyone would tell you, and I'd be the first to admit, I'm not a minimalist. Okay. I'm not going to just give you score time. I'm not. I know I talk more than Pat Summerall and Ray Scott. There are different ways of going about doing it, but Spencer and I have plenty of room together. It is a conversation with us. And I think that it's all about chemistry. And Madden and Pat had, I don't know that the term chemistry in the booth was ever mentioned by a critic until Madden and Summerall were paired together. There just wasn't as much attention paid by sports writers to the art of play-by-play in the booth in the 70s as there was when we got into the 80s. USA Today and Rudy Martzke had his big column. And after Rudy had success with that, it seemed like every major newspaper in every big town had to have a sports media critic. And so that's how stars were born. In terms of overall play-by-play of all sports, Kurt Gowdy and Dick Enberg are still, they were the guys that influenced me the most. But I will tell you, having met Pat, and he was always so gracious to me when I did meet him and very complimentary, it meant a lot. And when I got to introduce him here in Louisiana back in 2007 at our Fellowship of Christian Athletes Founders Day banquet, it was a real honor. It was a real thrill. And by that time, he had retired from Fox and still wanted to work. That was the other thing that I took away from it. We were having a great conversation, and he was complimenting me on my work at CBS. And so we had a good hour or so to talk that night. And it was an experience I'll never forget. But we can all learn from people like Summerall. And I think what people loved about him most on NFL Sundays was that voice was so powerful. It was so the timbre in his voice was so strong. And as we get older, our voices do get better. They get deeper and they get more resonant and more memorable. And I think that the case for guys like Al Michaels to hang around until they're 80, I think Brent Musburger should have hung around a little bit longer than he did. And certainly Pat Summerall lasted a long, long time in the booth and was Mr. NFL Sunday, I think, as a play-by-play man. But we do get better with age. If we keep our faculties, we do get better with age in this business, and Summerall is proof of that.
Tim, as always, thank you. Great to have you on again. It's been too long. Enjoy the golf game. I saw some of the clips hitting the ball off the ground.
Hey, my Celebrity Am team, we won the Byron Nelson Celebrity Am.
Did you really? Oh, wow.
We did it. We won the thing in a putt-off.
I saw. Yeah.
We did it. Yeah, we did it with a putt-off, and we had a great time at Trinity, the links course that Crenshaw built, the one that the PGA got away from about 3 years ago. So yeah, I'm definitely in Timmy B tour mode right now.
There you go. Hit that driver. Hit the driver off the ground. I saw you do that.
Driver off the deck.
You can get a little more length with that. Tim Brando, Fox Sports, always a phenomenal segment, and the chat room loves it when he joins us and always has something to say about college athletics. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for your automotive needs. Richard Carr, been around for over 2 decades here in Central Texas, just recently celebrated their anniversary, and even though that's come and gone, they're still celebrating big anniversary savings right now that you can take full advantage of, especially as the summer months get underway and you start to maybe get prepared for cross-country road trips, driving out to the amusement park, whatever you might be doing. You want to do it with peace of mind, driving a sturdy vehicle that's been checked out and you know is good to go on the road. Right now, Richard Carr has a space for your entire crew with a Buick Enclave, offering quiet drive loaded with space-age technology. The Buick Enclave delivers uncommon luxury at a common price. So you can come experience right now the Buick Enclave with a test drive today, and they are offering thousands in savings on the new Enclave, $6,000 to be exact. Also offering thousands in savings on their sister or brother vehicle. They're in the Buick line, the Envision. So you can check that out as well over at Richard Carr. Plus, military and first responders save an additional $500 on top of the previously mentioned savings. So good deals right now on the Buicks. You can go and get yourself squared away right now if you're looking to buy a new vehicle. If not, then the pre-owned cars and trucks on the lot are abundant and many options for you to choose from. Over 90 highly inspected used cars and trucks for you to check out, and 100% credit approval is always the goal, as they say yes when others say no. So there's just a couple of options amongst many, and look, if you're not looking to get into a vehicle but you need some body work done, need an oil change, they can take care of you and square that away as well. For 25 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and you know, I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more or stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. And look, we're going to do some cross promotion from here on out. The triple option, in case you have not seen it, is my show that I do every Monday through Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. And it's this cool little, frame we've got here to bring in for the Texas Beef House top 5 best bets of the week with our brand new friend, Katherine Cafarelli from FundedSportsTrader.com. Katherine, I will tell you, everybody loves your segment. They loved it last week. It was a huge hit. It was the minute that it started, the chat room exploded. They were very,
cool.
Yeah. So hopefully this gets you more social media following or whatever. You're about to be a big deal in the football world. I don't know what to tell you. We have, and I don't know if people can count this high, but 40,000 subscribers now. That is far less than a lot of our competitors, but still doing well.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, Katherine, let's get into it. I like this week. There's some hometown flavor for you this week. A lot of New York-centric bets, but the Knicks, the bets you sent on the Knicks are really intriguing in particular. And the one on the Yankees that we'll get to first here, number 5 on the list, which is the Yankees on the money line with a DraftKings reward and an instant payout. Walk us through this one and why this is such a good bet.
So this is honestly a passion pick, and I know in betting, you're not supposed to do that. And we talk about this on the Funded Sports Trader all the time when I do interviews with the winners. But I went to school in Florida. I went to the University of South Florida, and a bunch of my very good college friends are Rays fans. And the Yankees need to win. They will win. Also, fun fact, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Tampa Bay fan base. They are awful. There will be more Yankee fans in that stadium. I don't even know what it is now, field. Than there will be Rays fans.
You mean that dump that they call a field?
Yeah.
Look, 50-50 Bush Boulevard. Okay, 2003 to 2005 after I got out of FSU, all right? Listen, I'm a Florida boy living here in Texas now. But, yeah, I lived at Bush Boulevard in an apartment there. So I'm familiar with you.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm 3 miles from USF, if that, where I was. Yeah, it wasn't that far. Just go, my best friend's now wife, she was going to USF when we were living there. So, yeah, I've been to USF many times. I've been to many Rays games. Now, I'm a Red Sox fan. This is where you and I will conflict, obviously. So I can't wait for your Yankees-Red Sox bets. We'll have some fun. But one thing I think Yankees and Red Sox fans can agree on is that the Rays are trash. All of their fans, and here's what, because I grew up in Fort Myers, so I was there before the Rays were a thing, right? I was there right before the Marlins were a thing. Every single Rays fan has I don't want to say every single, but a large majority of them have a Yankees jersey in their closet that as soon as things turn the other way, will be like, I've been repping the Yankees since 2000, whenever. That's what they do. So, yeah, no, I'm with you on this one. And plus, this is not their fault. This is the city and the ownership and all that. But that place they play in is an absolute hole of a dump, of a dumpster of a toilet. It's awful. It's not a place that people should be playing professional sports or singing songs or doing anything, really. Nothing should happen in that building. It should go away.
That is so funny. But yeah, they're awful. I mean, they're awful all around, though. Even as Bucs fans, before Brady was there was nobody at that stadium, which is unfortunate because Ray J is a lot of fun, but whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I'm taking the Yankees, the win. The fun part about it is this: I bet primarily on DraftKings, so they just had a little opt-in reward thing. If the Yankees are leading by 2 at any point, I automatically win the bet. So I don't even have to wait for the end of the game. I mean, essentially they could be winning by 2 and lose and I still win. So that's cool.
Yeah. Just keep going, Garrett. We're good? Okay. All right. Number 4. By the way, yeah, 2 at any point means that Aaron Judge gets to hit a 2-run home run in the first inning, and it'd be totally fine. You're good to go. That's a great deal. One of the hottest guys in all of sports right now, Jalen Brunson, as the Knicks and Pacers continue. This series has really been Knicks right here, and you've got him at over 34.5, which I think this is a really good bet right here.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you, Paul. But his average is 35.6. Like I was just looking at some stats, and last game he didn't play for however bunch of minutes, and he still got 29 points. I feel like he's just dominating. If he doesn't get over 34.5, I'll be really surprised.
Yeah, he came back after that ankle injury, gutted it out, and still scored, like he was almost there anyway. Like he was almost there and didn't play. So yeah, if he's healthier, which I think the Knicks are hoping and believing, I think that's a pretty common thing, especially since he's been scoring 40 when he's at full strength every night. Number 3, the Knicks plus 7.5. They're not favored in this game, which is weird to me, considering they have pretty much controlled it from the jump.
Yeah, they're not favored, but if anyone, whether you're a Knicks fan or not a Knicks fan, has been paying attention to any of these Knicks games during the playoffs, they are winning excitingly in the last minute. So plus 7.5 for me just seems like a big spread. Just they haven't won by that much. So even just to cover the points, I think it'll continue to be very close games, just really fun to watch. And I took the points here.
Yeah, look, and here's the deal. If the Knicks win, this is a no-brainer right here. If you think the Knicks are just going to win, you don't even really need to think about that. And that's a pretty large spread. That's a pretty large spread anyway, even if the Pacers would win, given how this series has gone and the matchups. I know the Knicks have some injuries, but even still, that's a pretty enticing number when it would come to making this bet, I think.
Yeah.
Number 2, let's talk a little hockey. Here we go. Oops. Did I go backwards? What happened? All right. Number 2, David Pastrnak, anytime scorer for the Bruins. Garrett, you said the other night that he was in his feelings.
He got it, yeah. So at the end of that game, Florida really took it to Boston in a game 2. There was a big brawl at the end right there. Brad Marchand threw the first punch, and you kind of look how everything's unfolded. Pasternak's supposed to be the leader of your team. He's kind of just apprehensive, looking around. They clear the ice. Then he goes back out there and checks Matthew Tkachuk. Both of those guys get sent out. I think this is going to be one of those I wouldn't say a must-win game for Boston, but the way that series went in the first round with Toronto, you can't afford to have any mishaps here. I like Pastrnak to come out and get some good looks early on, and I expect him to get on the board at least once in this game.
So there you go. We agree today. You guys are already making peace.
Yeah.
Catherine
We
and
do
Garrett.
agree. I was very sad I lost. I was very surprised by how badly they played in that last game, but that's okay. We're moving on. He's going to score.
Anytime scorer for the leader of the team. That's that one right there. And again, we're not telling you the riskiest bets or whatever. We're telling you the best ones. The best guy on the Bruins to score at any point during a playoff game. That's a good bet right there. That's going to probably pay out for you. Number 1. Knicks Pacers over 22.5 total points. I picked this GIF right here because this series back in the 90s, when I was but a boy, would not have gotten anywhere close to this. This particular game might have been 90 to 85, honestly, so it wouldn't have gotten into the 222.5 total points and hitting the over. But the way that these two teams score, Catherine, is that why you're banking on this?
Yeah, just looking at historical total points recently, even outside of this series, just how they're both playing. It's been 118 to 130 or 116 to whatever. It doesn't, for total points, it should I think it should. They haven't had a low scoring game really either team in a couple of games. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's my opinion.
All right, so Knicks and Pacers. I know that like you're younger, so the '90s, these series with Starks and Reggie Miller and Spike Lee are well before your run. But is there a sense of nostalgia in New York right now where people are fired up about this because this is an old-time playoff rivalry here?
So I'm going to speak honestly because I can't bullshit. I truly don't know, but I can tell you in New York, like it doesn't matter who we're playing. The Knicks are winning, and that is all that anybody cares. But between the Knicks and the Rangers right now, New York is on fire. Yeah. And I'm really hoping if the Celtics and the Bruins pull it off, and that's who we play next, I think that's who we're supposed to be playing next in both of those, it's going to be like New York might be on fire. It's going to be insane because that's a rivalry in itself. Like you said, you're a Red Sox fan, you know that.
Look, I'll tell you, and I'm like, you know, the Red Sox are my only team from Boston. That just happened because I grew up in Fort Myers, and that's where they train, as you know. But I just know that if there's 3 games across 3 different sports that are New York and Boston, that's going to be one of the best Junes in, I can't even, I mean, like,
it'll
whatever.
Be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Because the Yankees and Red Sox, I don't think you've played that much yet. So that's coming around, too. Like, that'll be, I'm not sure exactly when that is, but yeah, that could, if they sneak in and their series starts, oh my gosh. It's going to be, it might look like the Revolutionary War. Like, honestly.
It's going to become kind of like Philly around here. Philly fans are crazy when they play their rivals and stuff like that. So we'll see.
But Rangers, Bruins, Knicks, Celtics in a championship round. Oh, dear God. Like, you know, we might need to make our peace with the Lord. Like, the world might end right there. Katherine, tell everybody once again how they can find you on Instagram.
At KC316.
KC316. There you go. Simple. Katherine Cafarelli, our new best friend, making her best picks of the week. So if you're in a place that allows sports gambling, technically not the place that we're in right now, standing in Waco, Texas, but many of our listeners nationwide get to have that wonderful benefit that Garrett, you and I don't get to have.
We'll get there eventually.
But I feel like, look, here's the deal. We also don't have good pizza here like you do, so it's another sacrifice that we just make here in Texas.
You got to visit New York.
Yeah, well, we'll find our way up there, I promise you. It's been a while since we've had to make a work trip up there. I think the last one I made was the Super Bowl. But yeah, we'll get up there. We'll get up there soon. Katherine, thank you so much. And again, thank you for watching this. Thanks to Funded Sports Trader. Go to fundedsportstrader.com. Our promo code 365sports for 10% off. You can unlock so much stuff and become a professional sports trader. Funded Sports Trader, pioneering the future of sports. Go to fundedsportstrader.com, promo code 365sports. Katherine, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Garrett.
All right, we're wrapping it up right after this.
TexasBeefHouse.com, the sponsor of the Top 5 every day, Monday through Friday. Don't forget tonight at 10:30 on the local CW, 365 Sports Tonight. And enjoy the weekend. Next week, I know that Monday we have Scott Drew. Tuesday, Mac Rhodes and Sonny Dykes. Those are just a couple or 2 or 3 of the guests that we have for next week.
Can we introduce him as not Kentucky coach Scott
Yes,
Drew?
we can. Absolutely. I can't wait to do that. In fact, Garrett Ross, great stuff. Emery Winter is working on 365 Sports Tonight. Craig Smoak, thank you. Paul Catalina, thank you. Please, one more time, if you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe button. Spread the word as we continue to grow. And also thanks to Jack McKenzie, Levi Caraway for what they do and our great sponsors as we run through the month of May. I'm David Smoak. Have a great weekend. Good night.